podium and introduce yourself.
Hi, guys.
Hi, thanks for coming in. Maybe start with a little bit of introduction about yourself, and then the board members can ask you some questions.
Okay. Well, I moved here in 7th grade, and ever since then, I've just been helping out with the community. Over the summer, I started volunteering at Vista Hospital, Bridge House, homeless shelter, and Yard Busters for elderly people who can't necessarily maintain their yards. And, I do the Denver Rescue Mission ever since I moved here, so I don't know, I'm just into the community, and I love helping people. And my brother is also on this committee, sorry. Yeah, and so he got me introduced, and it just seems like a good group to be involved in and to help just around whatever I can do.
Great, we appreciate you applying. Questions from the board?
Sure. So have you gone to any of the meetings?
Yeah, I've been to 2.
I kind of figured that. I heard about you.
Yeah.
They're excited to have you. I just wondered if you had any suggestions on anything that you'd like to improve on the committee.
Well, I feel as if that we don't really have that much opinion inside because there are so many things that we have to deal with in one meeting that we don't really cover all the bases and to actually get straight, narrow things done with the problems we need to face with the different events that we're kind of putting together.
So do you think you need more time in the meeting?
Either that or we need to cut down on the things that we do each meeting.
Okay.
So that's just my opinion on it.
Good to know, though.
What year are you in school? And what school do you go to?
Monarch High School, I'm a sophomore.
And you're a sophomore. Now, this committee, you could put in as much time as you want or as little time as you want. I'm assuming that, especially when you're new, you'd put in quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
What about studies in school and all that? Are you going to be able to work around your studies? That would be priority?
Yeah, well, this year actually has been my best year academically, and I'm really focused. And I am the kind of person who put my schoolwork first instead of, actually joking off. So I actually do get my stuff done, and I feel like I could maintain both situations and kind of easily for me.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Following up on Chris's discussion, the most important thing is to make the meetings.
Yeah.
So can you commit to making virtually every meeting?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You know the schedule?
Yeah.
And you don't have conflicts?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I was interested in the comment that you made about having a safe place for teens to come. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what that means to you?
Well, so far in the 2 meetings I have been to, it has been a very friendly environment,
Mhm.
and there is time to joke off but also get things done. So I feel that's kind of a good place for me to come and actually feel safe with giving my ideas that can improve this town. It's obviously just a safe place, and I know some of the people from years above me and in my year that are actually really nice people. I can be safe to talk about my ideas.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad to have you define that a little more for us, because that's very important that you be able to feel you have a voice and you can actually give your ideas and have people consider them with real concern and real consideration. So that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Abby, thanks for coming in. We appreciate your interest in the committee, and we'll be acting on this later in this meeting. One question that I always have to ask every applicant is, do you have any potential conflicts of interest? And doubt that would be the case, but we
yeah,
always
I
have to
don't
ask
think
that
so.
question. Okay, very good.
Have you looked at all of your financial holdings?
That's all right. Okay, thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda is the concept plan presentation for the property at 201 South 4th Avenue. And just for the audience's benefit, I'm sure there's people that perhaps would like to make public comment on this or our next item, which is recreational sports programming. both of these are presentations, and if we have time, we'll certainly allow for public comment. If we run out of time, we do have to start the regular meeting at 7 o'clock. And so if we run out of time for public comment in this work session, you're welcome to stay and deliver public comment at our regular meeting, and that usually starts around 7:15. Or, I mean, the meeting starts at 7 o'clock, but public comment usually starts around 7:15. So you're welcome to stay on and make any public comment there if we're unable to do so at this time.
Thank you. Representatives of property in Original Town at 201 4th Avenue are here tonight to present a concept plan to the Board of Trustees concerning a proposal to redevelop this property that is within Original Town. The property is just under a half acre in size and described as lots 1, 2, and 3 of Block R within Superior Town West. It currently features a single-family residential home that's roughly 1,300 square feet in size and is developed as one lot. The zoning for this parcel is, as well as the lots and blocks within it, are zoned as medium-density residential. The RM zone district, as defined by the land use code, is intended to accommodate single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwelling units. Other zoning designations in the area include planned development, which is Cold Creek Crossings, further to the west, light industrial zoning, further to the north, and low-density residential to the east, and open space further south. Most of the developed properties within this particular property are single-family residences. With that, I'd like to introduce Bob Young, who is part of the team that's looking at this redevelopment proposal, and will present the concept plan.
Mayor, Council, good evening. My name's Bob Young. I've never had an opportunity to work in this town before. Our company's been in business since the year 1988. We've done a number of projects in Longmont and Louisville and Lafayette and Broomfield, but never in Superior. So we're excited about having the opportunity to do something. I'd like to introduce our team here that is here tonight. The next person that's going to be speaking to you is Ann Postel. Ann is with Osmosis Art and Architecture. She's an award-winning architect and pretty nice person. And sitting next to her is Tucker. Hi, Tucker. And this is Tim Kuntz here. Tim is our builder. He is his company. I don't know how long you've been in business, but don't want to think about it. Porchfront Builders. They build a number of projects in the area as well. And lastly, Deanna Falco, who's sitting in the back here. And she's the broker manager of 8030 Realty, who will be doing the marketing and project rollout should you approve a project there. We're excited about having this opportunity. This is clearly the first reinvestment in the west end of the community and for a long time. And we think there's a lot of opportunities here to expand value, to create alternative housing opportunities that maybe don't exist in that part of the community at this time. Inevitably what happens is, from a development perspective, we're strongly influenced by economics and those kinds of issues. And in working with Matt and his team, they've been great to work with so far. And they have a role, as you know, in terms of what's required, what's permitted, and those things are required and permitted for good reasons. We hope that in hearing about this project tonight, for you all, from a public policy point of view, making a call in the best interest of the community, that we'll be able to answer your questions and that you will find value in what we're proposing to do. So thank you for letting us be here tonight and listen to us. And let me introduce Ann to explain the design features of the project. Ann?
Good evening.
One more person. I didn't introduce Larry Abrams. Larry's the project manager and the project facilitator and lives on Carville Lane. So he's a person who would be interfacing with you, with Matt, and with the neighborhood as well. So,
how do I advance? Just right there? Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with the site plan because I think it's the it's a good place to start. We're really excited about this project. We have 3 triplex buildings. They are targeting young professional, young couple, smaller family buyer. It's a new type of housing product for this area of Superior. The triplexes are configured. Here's William Street and 4th Street, and the 3 triplexes are all oriented around a park, which has views. So each of the units will have mountain views looking out on that shared open space. They each have attached 2-car garages. Let me move to the plan. Then I'll get back to the exterior. The main level of the plan is all very open. You can see we've got a great room, dining, and kitchen all working together, open. The kitchen is a wonderful kitchen with an island, beautiful finishes and appliances. There is, in 2 of the plans, there is a pocket office, or what we like to call a command center, so that there's an office component. This main level of the home is oriented around a courtyard, so that each of the homes have outdoor living space. There, this one. The smaller units have a smaller courtyard, but they are also open to the outside. Attached 2-car garage. Upstairs, there is an owner's suite with a balcony, nice master bath, owner's bath, laundry, and a shared bathroom for either 2 bedrooms with another balcony. In this case, this one is configured as a loft space. And you can see the open, and that cut over the courtyard. All of the rooms look out onto that courtyard as well. The exterior style, go back the other way. Here's the front elevation. The exteriors are designed in a contemporary farmhouse style. So it's something that kind of fits the historic roots of Old Town Superior, but also has a very contemporary feel for this, what we're seeing as probably a younger buyer. The materials are board and bat and wood siding with balconies, wood trellises, contemporary, more rich colors, contemporary, but also we've made a point to make sure that at least one of the units has a white farmhouse look to the exterior. We go back to the street scene now. You can see that this would be the street scene along 4th. Oh, I'm sorry, this one is the street scene along Williams, and the park is in front of here. So imagine that you're looking across the park at this unit, and that's the front of the units on the park. Here's the side of the units where the garage access is coming from here, and the front doors are coming from this side for this unit. And then the 4th street scene. Because we've oriented these units around the park, we're accessing the garages from Williams, from 4th Street, and from the alley. And so there are garage doors, so you can see that we've made great effort to make the garages beautiful. We're using very high-quality doors, and we have extended the balconies out beyond the face of the garage. So you've got beautiful balconies, cantilevered bay windows, or box bay windows. So the side of the buildings that are off access from the street will still be beautiful. And I can either answer any questions or move on to. Go ahead.
So I had a question about these courtyards. They're concrete courtyards?
At this point, we have, because the ones that are open to the side are concrete, we'll probably have potted plants. It's a place for your barbecue, for your outdoor living area. That's certainly something that could be, you could have bits of areas that are not total paving.
So 2 things. The center unit is, the courtyard is basically, has all 4 sides of brick or whatever you've got on their batten board. And then, why did you do that? And then also, why didn't you consider flipping them to the back end so that they can enjoy the park?
Well, first question, the center unit does have an interior courtyard, which brings light to the inside of that interior unit. Traditionally, in that triplex unit, the interior unit is buried and doesn't have light. So with the courtyard on that interior unit, you get light into the interior of the space. And some outdoor living space. A lot of these buyers are going to have a little dog, or, you know, it gives you a place that you can say, this is my outdoor space, where you want to barbecue, where you can. The ones on the end, their outdoor spaces will be open to the common yard area. And your other question was?
Why didn't you consider maybe flipping them to the back where they enjoy the park right off the,
Let's go back to the
Patio?
right off the patio? So if you see that, you could, you know, flip them. I guess that would be the front.
The front porches.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the great room, and they have the access. They're right off of the park, so we put the porch and the living rooms of these spaces all have an opening onto the porch and onto that courtyard. So they'll have, from that one open space, you'll be able to enjoy the park and have your private outdoor space as well.
Square footage, price points,
Um,
patio dimensions.
Deanna will talk about
Okay.
price point, but square footage, let's see, Tucker, 1,500 and 1,700 square feet approximately, plus basement.
We've got a little over 15 minutes left, and do want to allow for more questions. So yeah, if there's additional presentations, yeah.
I'll turn it over to Deanna Franco, and she'll talk more about marketing and
Okay.
sales.
So we're probably looking at something between $300 and $350 a square foot, which I think would put us around $450 to $550 per unit, give or take the market. And I think what a great price range, given what we've seen in Boulder. It's very attractive.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, Trustee.
Or do you've been waiting to
Yeah,
ask a
I-
question? Go ahead.
Couple of questions.
Then I have a couple.
I'm not sure who's the right person to answer. So how do you envision taking care of the common grounds, and what are the owners responsible for taking care of?
In this project, it would be a homeowners association would be responsible for maintaining the park, for snow removal, trash, all of those items, typical HOA.
Okay, and so is there, okay, and what are your building heights anticipated to be?
I think around 30 feet. I don't know, Ann, what building height? 29 feet 11.
To the highest point on the roof, then, okay.
Okay. Are you done, Joe?
Mhm.
So my question was about that. I saw it was 2911, but there's a different color roof. There's some is dark charcoal and then some is light gray. So what's the differentiation? Is it just shading, or is that higher? Because it looked like it was 2911 to one point, and then it looked like there's a higher roof in other areas of the, there you go,
Are you
right
talking
there.
about this?
Yeah, so you're 2911 over there on the right, but that other side on the left looks higher. The gray.
Oh,
Yeah, right there. So can someone help me understand that?
Graphically, it's 29 feet 11
It's the
as
same.
a maximum height.
Okay, so, well,
I see what you're saying.
Roughly the same height, though.
okay, well, it didn't
I
look
think
that
it's
way on
just-
this drawing. It's deceiving.
It's
So,
deceiving.
and then I didn't understand why one would be the dark gray, charcoal gray, and then the other area is lighter gray for some reason. It's still shingles.
If you want to have him, can you
Okay.
come up to the, you mind coming up to the mic, thanks. I just want to make sure we get all the comments recorded.
Completely into this job, so he's.
Graphically, the lighter portions are further away,
Uh-huh.
or the further way points. So the darker ones would go to the front here.
So they're the back.
Yeah, so
back
the darker ones would be this, the side of this face here, and the lighter one is going to be this. It's just that it's half
Okay.
the building length away.
Okay, that's great explanation. Okay, so then my next question is the alley access, does the alley access on the 2
South side.
units, there you go there. Does that alley exist today?
Yes.
Okay, and then the 5 feet of the driveways, how in the world can you put a car on that 5-foot driveway into that alley? I don't understand if we can actually allow a 5-foot driveway. See that little piece of gray concrete? The cars are in the garage in this depiction, actually parked inside the garage building, and there's a 5-foot concrete up to the alley.
The alley is 20 feet.
I know, but an alley is not for parking cars, it's for accessing. So if you want to park your car in your driveway, you can't do it. Where would they park the car then? If they had their garage full of other things, like
There is
kids?
There is street
kids.
parking. There is street parking, but this is not an alley where it's not an alley with a driveway apron where you can park.
Right. Well, that was my concern, is there's no place to park in front of the garage, because you've got the
Right.
alley there. So that's a concern I have, is you have 5 feet of a driveway, which you can't park a car on, and you can't park the cars in the alley. So the setbacks to the edge of the lots and between the buildings just aren't enough. We got 13 feet between those two up there, we got 10 feet between here, we got 5 feet over here, and the only side that has 15 feet is there, and it's supposed to have like 25 feet on the fronts, but I don't know where the front is. From this, it's not easy to determine that. So I have some concerns about the setbacks, that the setbacks are not, there's not enough setback for that, based on that. And then it also says that you can put 6 residential units per lot, and a lot has to be, according to the code, at least a minimum of 6,000 square feet. And you're saying you can get 3 lots off of what was only 1 lot, 1 residential home. So I asked a question more of the staff of that. Help me understand, maybe not now today, but we're just having the discussion. I need to understand how you can put 9 units on residential units on what used to be 1 residential unit lot. And particularly, it's obviously hard to squeeze them in because you can't get the setbacks that are required to work out from this. So we had lots 1, 2, and 3 as defined for this 1 previous residential unit. Are these lots 1, 2, and 3 out of this whole half-acre lot the similar size as other lots around it, other residential lots around it? And I don't expect an answer as much as, because we're having a discussion here. Those are my questions, is that I just, when we talk about 3 lots on what used to be 1 residential lot, let's make sure we really have 3 there. Thank you.
Yeah, my questions were very similar to Rita's. It seems like it seems like to put a lot in a small area, and I just wanted to know if that's something that's common, but also if you've been a part of Original Town, I will stress, it's Original Town, not Old Town, but Original Town, especially in that area, the residents like the peace and quiet. And if you put in 9 new homes with 18 additional cars, one, the parking becomes an issue, but also the traffic, the increased traffic on that area would be a lot. So that's something that I'd be concerned about, and I would hope that we do continue doing traffic studies in that area by putting in residential units like this, but it does seem like a lot to me.
Do you all have additional presentation materials for us, or is everybody presented
No,
that?
I think
Okay.
just here to answer your
Okay.
question.
So just a follow-up question from Trustee Dozell. Is this within use by right parameters, or are you requesting some exceptions from?
The property's currently zoned for twice this level of density, actually. There are 3 platted lots, which are the same as the platted lots throughout the original town platting. So we're not proposing any change in zoning as far as the property goes.
Okay.
But it is not used by right, if I read the memo correctly.
And Stephen Williams and Fred Fox are here, town planners, for additional questions. But, it has medium-density residential, but I think in staff's look at this, there's a number of things that need to be addressed as far as parking and setbacks and other things to where it would go through to the planning commission and to the town board.
I think Sandy might be referring to the last couple of sentences on page 2 of the memo, and I need some clarification on what that's saying too. where I think particularly it says creating 6 or more lots require a major subdivision application, while applications for 6 or fewer lots will require a minor subdivision review process. So I'm not familiar
I
with.
think it meant units per lot.
No, that wasn't. No, that reads correctly, and when you're talking about a development, a planned development, it's number of lots that you're going to work on, so, so that wasn't units, I was correct in
Let's see.
the lot.
It's 6 or fewer, apparently 6 or fewer 6 or fewer lots requiring
Lots.
a minor subdivision review process, which I don't know what that means.
Stephen Williams, staff planner. So the purpose of the memo was just to kind of outline some of the medium-density residential zoning requirements. The actual, I guess, proposal today doesn't identify how many lots they're proposing, so we didn't respond specifically to those type of requests. We just try to outline what medium-density residential will require. And a simple analysis kind of suggests that this lot is, under half an acre in size. The minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet for medium-density residential, so the possibility is for them to get 3 lots out of this
Is
and
it
meet
currently-
zoning requirements.
Is it currently 1 lot or 3 lots?
It's currently developed as 1 lot, but it's platted as 3, so.
But it exceeds the 40% coverage right now. It's 44, isn't that correct?
Correct, that's one of the
Yeah, so
things that
there
they're,
are some aberrations here. I don't think we can speed through this at all. I need quite a bit more additional
Well,
time.
this is a
to talk
concept
this through.
plan,
I know,
correct.
but
So-
a lot of times people want to leave here with a concept plan, with a clear direction.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't give you a clear direction tonight because there are too many aberrations. And I would like to know if you've engaged the community surrounding this and what the feedback in those engagement meetings has been. And if you haven't, do you intend to?
Yes, we have not at this point in time. There's a subtext going on here as well around the question of lots and how many units are on a lot and how many lots there are. I imagine that the board is familiar, to some degree at least, with the idea of construction defects, issues, and how that impacts the ability to build a project. And if we are able to have a single lot underneath each unit, rather than a condominium where we have more than 1 unit on a single lot, then that reduces the risk of construction defects types of litigation and increases the ability to obtain builder's risk insurance. So this lot and unit question is kind of out there, and I think we wanted, I appreciate what everybody's saying tonight, because we wanted to get kind of a read of how you all might see the neighborhood, might see the public interest here, so that it would allow us to sort of sharpen our design pencil. But we have to start somewhere, so we did.
Well, you're like the first ones, you're the first ones on the block.
Yeah.
So it's going to be significant, and it's going to be looked at carefully,
Yeah.
because it's going to set a tone, I think.
But as Trustee Hanson said, you're putting a lot on this 1 lot. You're cramming a lot of stuff in, trying to make it look like 3 lots, but it really isn't 3 lots, especially with the setbacks and things like that. So those are the grave concerns for me. And it's not 6 units anyway per lot. It's 6 units per acre, I believe it is. Yeah, so you got a half of an acre here. There's some other things that have to be looked at here. You've got quite a bit on this one.
And look at our comprehensive plan if you haven't yet. There's some strong suggestions on meshing into the original town, which I think you're trying to do. That's going to be very significant.
Conforming with
Yeah.
those surrounding you. Conformity is a big issue.
And
of
that's hard
concern,
because
not
original
issue,
towns,
of-
a little bit of everything.
That's right.
But
Okay. Well, anything further? Hopefully, we've given you a little bit of direction. I think there's.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it's
Thank you.
encouraging to see,
Yes.
it's encouraging to see new projects coming along, and we just want to make sure they're the right thing for the community.
Well, we'll continue
so
to work with the staff in
That's
responding to
exactly
what
it.
your
Yeah.
concerns are.
Okay.
See where it goes.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we ought to just dive right into agenda item 4, if you did have public comment on that previous item, I'd encourage you to stay and address any of those at our regular meeting, which that public comment time will be around 7:15. So next, we'll go on to recreation sports programming for 2016. Again, this is just a presentation. We're not making a final vote or final decision on anything at this work session. If we run out of time for public comment, you're encouraged to stay after and deliver those at the regular meeting. So, Mr. Hammer.
Thanks, Mayor. Since 2003, the town's partnered with the YMCA to host recreational sports programs in the town using town facilities and fields at a discounted rate. Through this agreement, the Ys provided instruction and qualified instructors and materials to conduct sports programming in Superior, including marketing, registration, management, volunteer coach recruitment, on-site program supervision, and implementation of program evaluations. As compensation for these services, the town has paid the Y, as of late, $38,000 per year for these services. We've also provided priority facility use at our fields, including Community Park, our synthetic turf field, at a reduced rate of $5 per hour per field, which is less than some of the standard fees we charge for other groups. Engaging in this agreement has allowed the town to offer recreational sports to citizens without the incurred cost of staffing a full-time sports coordinator for the town. It's estimated that if we were to do this, it would cost the town somewhere in the range of $60,000 annually, which includes salary and benefits. The Ys offered several programs over the years with varying levels of success, soccer being one of them. Total annual participation has varied over the years, anywhere from 850 to 2,000 participants each year. Of that, about 25 to 35% of those participants typically are Superior residents. As of last year, the overall participation in activities was 1,832, with 514 of those being Superior residents. Revenue collected last year for these sports programs for the town was $3,324. Over the years, we've partnered with other groups for sports activities such as rugby, baseball, other activities. Some of those include Monarch Youth Football, Monarch Little League Baseball, Rock Creek Flyers Swim Team, and Superior Rugby, who all use our facilities, and our residents partner in and use their organizations for sports activities. We also have contracted with Marcel Balboa for soccer camps, Grassroots, Ultimate Disc, Slackline Industries, I-9 Sports, and others to provide recreational opportunities to meet residents' needs. Through these agreements, the towns receive revenue in the form of per-player fees and facility rental fees and registration fees. Other than recreational soccer, the town has been successful in providing traditional sports leagues by engaging with independent sports organizations. This past year, Broomfield Soccer Club has announced a financial partnership with the new Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports Facility, where they will have year-round access to indoor turf field and permanent presence in Superior for use of that facility. As such, as part of this agreement, the Boulder Soccer Club has inquired about a partnership with the town to host non-competitive recreational leagues in the spring and fall and pay the town a per-player fee in exchange for facility use, similar to other partnerships we have with other groups. In the winter months, residents would then have the opportunity to participate in additional programming using the indoor turf field at Boulder Valley Ice and Indoor Sports, and the fees to participate in the seasonal soccer club program would be consistent or slightly higher than the Y fees. We provided a chart kind of comparing the two programs. Staff is recommending that we enter into partnership with the soccer club on a trial basis for 2016, and then follow up with an evaluation, and then make a determination in 2017 whether to continue with the soccer club. Let's see. I think that's we provided additional chart with the various groups that we partner with for sports activities. Patrick, do you have anything in addition to that?
Staff does not. We've tried to include as much information as possible in the cover memo.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So when you say the annual revenue collected at the town of Superior is
Yeah.
3,324, is that just?
For last year.
Last year, is that just from the soccer program or just all programs for the recreation for the town?
That's just the programs that are specific to this contract. So it's a little confusing in the sense that there are great programs that the Y provides that are outside of this contract agreement that take place at the schools, and in some cases even on town facilities that are outside of this agreement. The $3,324 is the revenue that's collected through the $5 per hour per field fee.
From any recreation from the Y? So it could be football or.
So
I know we don't
football-
but I'm just saying, it's more than just soccer, correct?
This past year, it was soccer and baseball for the most part.
Okay. And then if we terminate our services with the YMCA for soccer,
Mhm.
does that mean that we still pay the $38,000 annually?
No, I would suggest to the board that agreement stop.
So then what other activity would be canceled from the Y other than the soccer?
Right now, the programs that are identified in the agreement that we saw the impact to would be specific to soccer and some level of youth baseball.
And that's all we have left with the YMCA?
Correct. So the town's tennis program is under a separate agreement. The
Okay,
town typically
right.
has not partnered with the YMCA for youth basketball. There was some question this last year whether, flag football, was it included, was it not included? We had some teams at the field, some teams not. So the big impact that we see is through the youth soccer program.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify
Right.
how much activities that we would be canceling if we moved forward.
Right. For the most part, we've had discussions with Monarch Little League Baseball. They've really, in this past year, they came to the board wanting to use Kuffner Field for more T-ball-based activities. We have, over the years, begun to work more on a contractual basis with youth sports groups rather than contracting out in an effort to collect fees back through the town, either in the form of per-player fees or what we do is an 80-20 profit split where a portion of the registration fees will come back to the town.
So this new model, are there other towns that are doing this?
Correct. Yeah, and really what the proposal is tonight is bringing soccer in alignment with how the town interacts with its other youth sports organizations. Rock Creek Flyers, Monarch Mustangs football, Monarch Little League Baseball, Superior Rugby. Those are contractual partnership groups that the town does not pay out for.
But other municipalities in the area all work off this new model? Is that what you
Similar,
think?
it varies.
varies.
I spent time in Commerce City, and as long as you rented the field, whoever could come in and use it. We participate in a soccer league over in the city of Thornton where I pay a registration fee, and that fee gets passed on to the municipality. So it really does kind of vary based upon the organization that you're working with. Okay. I will say, I don't know how common it is to contract out at that amount, the $38,000. I mean, that's a decent amount of money to contract out to have somebody provide a service on your behalf.
Patrick, we've received a lot of comments
Sure.
on this item from residents concerned about a potential change here. Is it possible, and how would it work if we were to offer both? Keep some kind of arrangement with the YMCA and approach a new relationship with Broomfield Soccer, and then let the market decide. I mean, let people decide. I think the other question is, if if the answer to that was yes, then the other question that the board has to decide is, do we want to continue paying
Correct.
one organization, but then the other organization is not getting paid, and none of the other organizations for the other sports are getting paid either. So the big question is, does it make sense for
Correct.
Superior to continue paying for this?
I think you could. I would worry a little bit about dividing the market a little too much. The town's got a kind of a finite number of kids in youth sports programs. I think with Broomfield naturally moving over into the town center and wanting to rent fields, I think that was naturally going to kind of happen anyway. I do worry a little bit about that negatively impacting kids. I think the preference would be, we would also be inviting competing groups for the same amount of limited field resources, which might get a little sticky. But you're right, and the question was raised through several emails today: is can all sports groups get a subsidy? What is the hierarchy of sports in town? And I think, to your point, Mayor, that's really one of the questions that needs to be answered: is the subsidy.
Right. Maybe speak to a little bit of the history of that subsidy. I mean, I think I know the answer to it, but I don't know for certain, and maybe you could speak and kind of educate the rest of us. Is how did it come to be that we're paying that, and why is that a good thing to be paying that?
And I might have to rely on Matt and even Martin, who this agreement predates me. It goes back to when the districts dissolved and services rolled over to the town in 2003. At that time, it's my understanding the department was growing, select number of staff. This at the time was a good opportunity to provide youth sports in town and not incur the cost to have program staff.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, back in 2003, we had smaller staff. Almost, I think we had one, maybe two people in the recreation department at the time, and it was a good opportunity, I think, to be able to provide sports activities to our residents without having to add staff to do that. And I think over the years we've added staff, which has helped, and there's been a growth in club sports, so you've seen a natural progression there too as well. So I think that's how initially we got. We're looking to provide a service to residents for sports programming, and the Y was a great opportunity to do that. I would say that I think your option that you mentioned about offering both to residents and letting them decide which is best for them, I think we can make that work if we, can work something out with both groups. I think it might be a good opportunity. We have limited fields to begin with, and we have that's always going to be an issue for us on programming the fields, and it's just something that we have to deal with, and would have to deal with whether we had one or two organizations offering soccer to kids in town.
Okay. Has there been discussion with the YMCA about this fee and about the potential of them continuing without or a reduced fee or no fee?
We have not. We were recently approached by Broomfield, letting us know they were coming into town, and it was an opportunity once we kind of looked at the contract agreement to bring this discussion forward.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm dominating all the questions here.
If you
but
have them.
what is our time frame here? What are we?
Ideally, it would be good to have something in place by the spring soccer season, which,
Okay.
a lot of that prep happens, in the winter,
Okay.
winter months.
So just for the viewing public, we're not making a decision tonight, and we don't need to make a decision, at the next meeting. So I think that's good. There's clearly a lot of people kind of caught by surprise by this, and I think need to digest and understand the options, and we probably have a little bit of follow-up to do as well. So, all right, I'll stop asking questions and let someone else.
I can't imagine having a competition between a concessionaire and somebody who's getting money from the town, and that's not a fair competition. So I think sometime in the future we'll have to decide if we want to continue with the services contract or a concessionaire, which is essentially what Broomfield is offering. Is they provide the league and give us some money back for being here. Plus our size, I just don't see two leagues. I can't imagine. I don't know what the age group spreads are between each team in a non-competitive league, but how would you probably be lucky to get two teams per each age group?
I think both organizations pull from a larger area, which
I know
is
that,
and the key thing here is the fields.
Right.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
everybody's looking for time on fields, especially when you have a field that has lights. You know, because in the summertime you can get more usage out of it. So even though I would say you might be splitting the participation level between two groups, I would guess that it's still beneficial to both groups. But
Yeah,
we
the-
would have to have that conversation.
The
with
final question I had was Broomfield Soccer. Are they currently running a league, or are they currently running clubs?
They are running a recreational league. What they came to us with was a net new program to kind of suit the needs of the towns in a recreational style. And it would be located on town facilities with the opportunities then to utilize the indoor space potentially at BVEI when that facility's open.
Trustee Henson and Doza.
I don't know if you just said this or not, but is Broomfield Soccer moving their entire operation to Superior?
No, it's
Or
my
just a
understanding
portion
that
of it?
a portion of it, and that they'll have the use of that turf field, a significant amount of use on that turf field at the Boulder Valley Ice.
Okay, and then they would also be asking for use of the AstroTurf field up at Williams Field.
Correct.
Yeah.
Our just kind of quick initial thoughts when this was proposed was, you know, maybe a similar field usage to what's being utilized now for soccer would somehow transfer over
Okay.
in lieu of that kind of per player feedback to the town.
When we first heard that Broomfield Soccer wanted to start the program here, it just seems odd to me that Broomfield Soccer would be in Superior. It should be Superior Soccer. And I would wonder if Broomfield Soccer would prefer to, the division that's here, change the name to Superior Soccer and make it a superior, true Superior program. The question is whether we allow multiple programs offer the same sport. To me, it seems like a lot for this small community. But what I would say, just like any of the other programs, like it's now Monarch Football, used to be Superior Mustangs and Louisville Pirates. Those two programs ran into tough times, so they figured out a way to make it work, and they consolidated. And then they came back to the town and said, hey, we still want to offer football in this area. Well, any other individual in town had the opportunity to create a football program and step in its place. I would say we treat these organizations the same way. Let the organizations come up with a plan, and if they can make it work under the same parameters that every other youth program works under in this town, great, let it happen. But I agree with most of the comments that are being said. We have a limited amount of space, and we've got some great programs in town that I think, you know, deserve the time on the fields that they've, you know, built up a reputation for.
Trustee Doza.
My biggest concern was the fact that I read that 25 to 35% of the participants are from Superior, and the rest are outside of Superior. So I don't know that we should be funding through the Y a program where the majority are coming from outside our community. I think it's great for us to host it here and host the Y, allow the Y to host their program here. But why are we continuing to pay for a program that started out to be Superior's in 2003 and now has become the majority someone else's program, as well as ours? So I like the idea that's been suggested from Matt and others that let's see if they can figure out a way to work together. But we shouldn't have to continue to subsidize a program that no longer is ours, is no longer Superior's. And I do think there are families that will probably want to have a 2-season soccer program rather than a 3-season.
Sure.
So, which is Broomfield's recommendation, soccer recommendations.
It would be an opportunity if the individuals
an
wanted to
option.
part, it would
Right.
be an option.
But it does,
Correct.
Y is the lesser intensity
Sure.
perhaps, two-season soccer, rather than including the winter in now that Broomfield would because of the artificial turfs field in Boulder Valley Ice. So I think there's room for both, but the big problem that I have in the middle here is that we're still paying a contract from the town of Superior for something that was started in 2003, which looks totally different today.
Correct.
And that's where you need to work your magic and talk to all the parties involved and try and figure out, how do we keep everybody engaged and involved in the same way, similar way that we have now? But life has changed significantly since 2003, and we need to take a look at that contract that we have with the Y.
Trustee Pennington?
Am I correct, or we are not subsidizing Monarch Youth Football, Monarch Little League, Rock Creek Flyers, Superior Rugby?
Correct. We work with those groups in the form of a per-player fee. Previously, it had been a discounted field fee that was a tremendous amount of work on staff, so we do not subsidize those groups.
So I too have huge problems with this disparate subsidy. That's what it is, face it. You know, if we're 514 kids last year from Superior participated in
Correct.
$38,000.
Yeah, correct, 33.
Then it's a subsidy of $75 a
Mhm.
head, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I think it is time to go back to the Y to discuss this problem with them. See, I suspect they probably have other arrangements in place with other municipalities and see whether or not something can be negotiated. I have Joe's same problem. I think in a town of our size with a finite number of kids, I have problems seeing two programs succeed. But I think the next step is a discussion with the Y to, because if they're incalcitrant, then perhaps we've got an easy decision. But if they come forward to us with some choices, I think we need to consider them. The other question is, where does this $60,000 full-time sports coordinator come into that deal? At what point would that be in our budget?
Correct. So that would be the benefit of working with groups like the YMCA is it does mean that we don't have to carry another full-time staff in the Parks and Recreation Department. And what we did is we took what would be salary survey for a recreation coordinator type position and factored in the town's benefit package. So working through agreements like these and through partnership agreements with other youth sports organizations does allow the town to not carry the cost of an employee. And we have not come forward with the board for a handful of years with that.
But when
proposal.
would you, under what circumstances would you come to us asking for a full-time sports coordinator?
You know, I think the time that we would have that discussion is if the town were to ever build its own recreation center. That's when you would start having the discussion about what staff you need to hire for the recreation center and for outdoor activities.
But in terms of tonight's conversation, it's not relevant.
No.
Okay.
And just to, ProStack has not addressed these very items specifically. I think you will see on ProStack's work plan ahead, looking at fee structures through Parks and Recreation. The other items that has been brought up is once fields are built in town center, having a clear path to what youth sports opportunities look like in town, knowing that future fields are going to be built.
So one final thing, timeline.
Mhm.
When are you looking for a decision to have been made?
We will, per the board's direction, we will start working with both groups immediately to try to resolve and come up with a plan to hopefully have ready to go by the beginning of the year.
By beginning of 2016?
Correct.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds ambitious.
Well, earlier you said something about by spring soccer, so.
Spring
I guess-
soccer, you would have to allow yourself a little bit of planning time and advertising
Yeah.
to make sure that groups are signing up for the right organizations and getting the right product they would want.
Okay, so we do need to get on this sooner than later, okay. Let's do two more questions, and we should
Okay.
probably wrap it up.
So one thing I guess I want to be clear on is you're going to go back to both groups and negotiate. And Sandy, you had suggested going back to the YMCA and renegotiating. are we saying that we're going to renegotiate or anything, or are we going to treat the YMCA and Broomfield Soccer, or Superior Soccer, like any other youth sports program, and let them do it? And if they can book field time, they can use the fields, if the fields aren't available. But there's no negotiating with anybody, I don't think, because I don't think anyone negotiates with the Flyers, or I don't think anyone negotiates with the Monarch Football and Monarch Little League, other than.
You're suggesting that we actually just say, we're not going to support it anymore. Can you float it
Yeah.
with the same parameters every other
I think that it's
entity
treated just
does?
like everyone else, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way it works is the board approves annually whatever Parks and Rec has worked out on the per player fee or whatever that is for each one of the youth sports organizations. So Flyers, Monarch Little League, Monarch Football comes through you, and you say, yeah, we're going to do $12.50 per player or per participant. That's it. And then we approve that through the consent agenda or something like that?
Typically, those items actually have not come before the board in terms of a formalized contract agreement, because it's an arrangement where the town is collecting in money through
Yeah.
through a
to
field
me,
usage
there's no
process.
negotiating that's necessary. So I would treat it just like every other sports program in
Well,
town.
I like to always have a discussion with a long-term business partner to see if there is any basis for an agreement. You know, and that's the way I would treat the Y.
I would agree. I mean, you know, you work with a group for 12, 13 years, and then in a month you decide, oh, sorry, we're not gonna deal with you anymore. You got to just play by a whole different rule book. That does not feel right to me. So I do think we need to
Have a discussion.
have a discussion, ease into this. My suspicion is we've already approved the 2016 budget, and my suspicion is there's probably $38,000 in there. I'm not advocating for spending that all. Maybe we can get a better deal, but I'm also not for just like, let's cut it off and forget it. So I think we need to see all the options. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
I agree with that also, but I think one of the questions that I think was the first question should be asked is this the model, this new model, is that the way we want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, do we all agree that $38,000 contract is not something we're interested in, but we're still interested in the why? So, I mean, I think we need to know that before we even say to the why, you know,
Sure.
yes or no.
And in my short time here with the town, I do think that we have evolved more towards accepting revenue in for programs and use of town facilities as opposed to paying fees. And I would say that is a fairly safe and sound model to look at going forward in terms of how Parks and Recreation is operated.
And to me, that's the bigger question here.
Mm-hmm.
And who we go with is, you know, we move forward when we figure out what that model is. So if we're changing the model, great. That's my thoughts.
Okay, Trustee
I
Johnson.
wouldn't put the false parameter of January 2016 on yourselves. We're making a change after many years.
Mm-hmm.
And if we need longer to make a change that is well thought out, et cetera, I'm fine with January of 2017 or maybe November of 2016 or something like that. So haste is not a criteria for me. A good decision is. So I would take off that January 2016 pressure. How does the rest of the board feel?
I completely agree.
Agreed.
So what does that mean, though?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, what does
Would
it
the-
mean,
would the
Patrick,
board like
if
me
we
to
take
bring-
that pressure off of you,
I
what does
would
that
need to
mean?
bring forward a contract to the board for $38,000
Yeah, see,
now,
Yeah.
within,
Okay.
at the next board.
That is not in the
I would
budget?
say let's
Work it.
have some discussions, see where we're at, and
Yeah.
then we can decide how quick or not it needs to be.
Yeah, the clear point is that life has changed since 2013, or
2003.
2003. God, I mean, and, you know, almost 2023. And then you need to go back and have that conversation. Sure. So,
Okay, we need to wrap up the work session. If you have public comment on this, please stick around for our public comment section of the regular meeting. We will
In
go ahead
15 minutes.
in approximately 15 minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and adjourn the work session and ready to start the regular meeting. Okay, call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees in the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors. Phyllis, could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Clint Folsom,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams,
Here?
Trustees Joe Cirelli,
Here.
Rita Gazelle,
Here.
Elia Gregores, Chris Hansen,
Here.
Sandy Pennington,
Here.
Town Manager Matt Magley,
Here?
Town Attorney Jeff Parker, Town Clerk Lois Harden here.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Have anyone that, to pull anything or make any
Yes.
changes to the agenda? Mayor Pro Tem Williams?
You want to pull something?
Yeah, I
Trustee
do.
Cirelli.
13F and G.
Oh, thank you.
I knew that was coming.
Okay, we're pulling 13F and G. Trustee Cirelli?
Yeah.
Okay, any other changes to the agenda? Anything further? Yes.
I have a question, maybe more.
Your microphone.
Or comment about the.
Microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have a question on the, or comment on the the agenda from our last board meeting. And so I don't know if I should pull that or ask that now or make a comment about that.
If
in the
it's just a
consent.
clarification question,
On
you
the
could
minute?
ask that at the beginning of the consent agenda.
What we had, okay, so here's my point. We had considerable discussion around the resolution to extend the date, but we have no mention of that in the minutes. Absolutely not one word. It's just that we made a resolution to extend the date on the SIA for FDP Phase 1. And I think that in order to make it clear and to direct people to the video, to let them know that there was considerable discussion before we made that resolution. Because the only thing that's in this draft is that we made a resolution and extended the date. And nothing about all of the extensive discussion that went on about that.
And Phyllis, you have to help me, isn't that the change we made with the Granicus and the video minutes?
No.
No?
No, the point was, we were saying in there, go to this point in the
Oh, okay.
Granicus to
All right.
see the
Well, we can make that
discussion
correction.
about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I think that that's where we're remiss in many of our minutes, is that it just goes that this was approved. Well, no
And then when you
value
click
as
on
to
that
the.
item, it should take you to that video.
All right, but there's no discussion that there was there was no notation that there was a extensive discussion about that, or even what the subject of the discussion was.
Right.
And I think that, I'm not just talking about this one particular
yeah,
agenda
yeah.
item. Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. And I think that we need to be more consistent in saying that this was the issue that was discussed, instead of just discussion ensued. We should have some notes about, if brief, some kind of notation that says there was quite a bit of discussion and some general subject of that discussion.
Okay. Okay.
As long as we all agree with Rita, I will not say anything.
But you agree?
I
Are you saying that you
totally
agree?
agree.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you bringing it up, because it has been an issue with me in the past. I love the Granicus business in shortening considerably the work Phyllis has to go through and the impossible task of trying to express our emotions and our sentiment correctly. But it does still need to say, even that one sentence, considerable discussion on both sides of the issue took place. And that tells the reader of that to go to the video. Without that, it appears we were all in instant agreement, and it wasn't contentious, and that particular subject was very contentious. So when it is, I just suggest a sentence or two saying it was contentious.
Or discussion, like in this case, there was discussion about how could we receive comfort that they would get this done without another further extension required, and also some of the conditions that may have been put on that SIA, which we deem to discuss in another meeting. So, there has to be something that says about the discussion. It just can't be, we made the resolution. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any further changes to the agenda?
No.
Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion by trustee Hansen, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. This is to approve the agenda with pulling items
F and G.
13, F, and G from the consent agenda. Have a motion on the table. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. Okay, next is reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start? Trustee Hansen.
Yeah, I don't have anything to report on, but I do have a question, or I guess a request that the board discuss at some point, and that has to do with lots 1 and 2 over here and the parking. I'd like to have everyone discuss how that's going to be divided up, because it seems to be an issue with at least one of the tenants over there, and I'm not sure if either one is going to be completely happy trying to discuss it on their own.
Let me get involved with these two.
Okay.
So Superior Liquor wants, I don't know how many spaces they want.
50%.
50% of the spaces. We also have to make sure that Lot 1 is viable for retail.
Sure.
They have to tell their retailers that they can provide a certain number of parking spaces. Superior Liquor has parking already. Why they don't have enough parking when they built the project, I'm not sure.
Yep.
The code may have changed with parking requirements or whatever, but I think there's a misunderstanding with CenterPoint as far as the code requirement for parking based on their square footages for retail. They think they're required to have more, so I think that's part of the issue. We can sit down and discuss with them. But the whole goal from the beginning was it's gonna be the way it will operate is their retailers, Superior Liquor customers will have access to that parking lot, and based on the hours of operation for when people go to the liquor store and when people are going to go to those retailers that they're proposing, we feel like there's going to be no conflict as far as
Yeah, I
parking
would tend to
goes.
agree with that, and it
so we
seems
just
like.
need to sit down with them and get them comfortable with the language so everybody's
Okay.
fine. So.
They seem to be very complementary businesses from a parking
Yeah.
perspective. The
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who are going to be using Starbucks and those types of businesses are in the morning, and who's going to be going to Superior Liquor
Right.
Mart are going to be in the afternoon or
yeah.
the evening, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I get concerned when evidently a new agreement has been thrown over to Superior Liquor Mart where they're asking them to agree to accepting 13 parking spots, and CenterPoint businesses get the rest. Now, Superior Liquor Mart at one point had offered to buy that entire lot, and they could do with it what they want as far as number of parking spots. We said as a board that no, we'll retain ownership of it and we'll divide it up. Now, I feel strongly Superior Liquor Mart is one of the top 5 businesses in our town that we should treat them with a lot of respect when it comes to things like this. When they want to improve their business, they want to allow ample parking for their future clients. If we allow a new business to come in, we don't know if they're going to surpass or be more valuable of a business than Superior Liquor Mart. So why would we give them more of an advantage over Superior Liquor Mart? So all I'm saying is let's not force Superior Liquor Mart to agree to something that doesn't really work for them, that they don't want to. Let's get involved and let's go back to the CenterPoint and say that we're going to own this and we're going to split it evenly. If you can't do it under those parameters, you can't do it. That's all I'm asking.
Can't do it under what parameters?
If CenterPoint can't agree to splitting that parking lot 50-50 with Superior Liquor Mart, and they say they can't build those businesses there, so be it. Then we find somebody else to buy that lot.
And so the larger question is, any developer of Lot 1 comes forward, wants to put parking on Lot 2, they need a certain amount, they say, and Superior Liquor says, well, we need this many spaces, and we tell any future developer, well, I'm sorry, you can't build Lot 1 because Superior Liquor needs this many spaces. Is that the position we want to take? I don't think so, from my perspective.
What is clear, however, is thank heavens we retained ownership of
Right.
that
I
lot.
couldn't agree more.
And didn't
Yeah.
sell it because, we were assured if we sold it to CenterPoint,
Well, and I
they
think
would
we'd be in the
work.
same situation if we sold it to Superior Liquor.
That's right. So
Well,
think-
I disagree with that. I think Superior Liquor would say, that we're gonna maintain 50, we're gonna keep 50% of these parking spots, and if you can build and have enough parking for your businesses, great, you can have 50% of them. I don't think Superior Liquor would go back to Centerpoint and say, we're only gonna give you 13 or 15 parking spots.
Well, I think this was discussed in the presentation, and we made it based on a certain number of spots, not 50/50, it was a different number. So I don't know why we are going back to this when we already made the decision and made the offer and asked both parties if they could live with this. So I think now it goes back into Matt's, as he said.
Yes, but
We
there's
need
an
to-
agreement, though,
I
from
think-
Centerpoint to Superior Liquor, where they're saying, we can only give you 13
Centerpoint to
spots.
Superior Liquor?
Well,
Yeah.
that was what we agreed to.
I-
We gave them the contract. Okay, well, I think we should take this offline and let Matt work
I
it.
honestly think it's.
That's why I said we need to
Yeah.
discuss
An issue
this
that
more, instead of leaving it there, because I don't think they're
can
gonna
be
get anywhere.
resolved, so.
Okay, let's let.
I think Matt should do
I
that.
think
yeah.
it's a great opportunity for the town manager to fall on his sword.
Absolutely.
No, to show his stuff.
Okay,
and
who's
make-
next?
Be able to work this out.
Who's
But Matt,
next?
I would appreciate it, keeping us up to date on that.
Yeah, as
because
soon as
that's important to me.
we need to get both parties in the room and just.
That's right.
Discuss
That's
it,
all I'm
so,
asking,
yeah.
is just discuss it.
But
I'm not
with the
saying that-
holidays, it just hasn't been able.
Okay.
That happened. I mean, Pete had jury duty, so he wasn't available, and it's just hasn't been
Okay.
able to been worked out, so.
Who's next?
I'll go next.
Trustee Throw.
Short and sweet. 2 meetings that I was at since our last board meeting. One was the regular RCAC meeting, and they are working on their work plan for 2016. And the Historical Commission, and they too are working on their work plan for 2016. And the one thing I'd like to point out of note from the Historical Commission, coincidentally would be an overlap to the Youth Leadership Council as well, is the fire truck Count the Lights evening is December 5th. And the museum, that's the first Saturday, the museum is usually open in the morning, but they're gonna be, instead of the morning, they're gonna be open at night from 4:30 to 7 during the Count the Lights presentation event at Grasso Park, or Founder's Park, whatever park it is, Grasso Park.
Okay. Trustee Giselle.
I attended a DRCOG, Denver Regional Council of Government Board meeting last Wednesday, regular monthly meeting, and the major point that came out of it was the Flatiron Flyer bus, which is supposed to be one of our major new advantages of having 36 done. It's going to start January 3rd. So they will be going from Denver to Boulder, and the Flatiron Flyer, it's going to be called, will be that express bus. The one glitch in this whole process is that they intended, RTD, to have the Flatiron Flyer be able to bypass on the shoulder any traffic or accidents. And now the Colorado Highway Patrol has said, only emergency vehicles and patrol can go on the shoulder of the road. So it may require legislation of the Colorado legislature to allow the Flatiron Flyer to actually fly down the shoulder of the roads.
There was a
What
big,
happens if they break down in the shoulder?
Well, couldn't you see that? The Flatiron Flyer flying along and runs into a traffic accident, so it moved off to the shoulder of the road.
Just to confirm, that only affects the all-stop bus. I mean, the ones that are express are gonna be in the express lane, and that's not the issue. The issue is this is the all-stop buses
Right, the one that needs to get off and go
Yes.
on and wants to get around the traffic. But it was interesting.
Okay.
Dilemma that no one had thought about.
was in today's paper too,
Yeah.
Anything further?
or yesterday's.
No other, I'll have a comment at the end of the meeting, but this is all for now, because we have,
Okay. Trustee Pennington.
Attended a NOSAC Advisory Committee meeting. They're working on their work plan as well. There are 2 outstanding issues that I think are relevant that need further discussion by the board, perhaps at the retreat. One is OSAC spent a considerable time this spring on a mission and goal statement, partly to get themselves reacclimated to the changing nature of OSAC. And they're asking for board comment on that. Can it be substituted for their mission and goals in their authorizing resolution? Should it just be an operating, a mission and goals, and whether or not that can be put on the website for the OSAC description. So those are, good retreat topics. The other thing they're actively discussing is supporting expediting trail building, interior connections to open space, et cetera. And that, I think, is a perfect topic for retreat discussion. But just wanted to give you a heads up on it. Some of us attended the Rock Creek HOA Casino Night, which is always great fun and a great chance it was packed, and I don't know how many attended, but very successful evening. Two things from Traffic and Safety Committee, which met the previous meeting. Thanks to our Sheriff's Department and Matt as town manager for upping the enforcement at Waldona. I found it very interesting that so many tickets were given out on the first couple of days, and then everybody behaved. Imagine that thereafter. Also, one resident brought up a very unsafe situation where students going to the two schools, we have Superior Elementary and El Dorado K-8, are actually biking in the wrong lane. They're not in the right lane, the same direction as cars, are going against car traffic. So
Students are?
Students on bikes. And I haven't witnessed it, but he has. And so I'd ask our public safety officers to keep an eye out for that. I don't know if they're going to ticket the youth, but they certainly should give them a warning.
I mean, usually we try to work with the schools
Right.
just to educate the kids
Right.
on how they should.
And then I was a little, I had consternation, so I was concerned, I suppose, that we only are getting June 16th Planning Commission minutes. Seemed to be a glitch in the system there, so just wanted to note that. And then, as usual at this time of year, CU basketball, the cheapest entertainment in town. They're 3-1 now, so suggest you all
It was
start
barely
going.
entertaining.
Is that entertainment?
It's
That's
very
right.
entertaining. So it's a great opportunity to get connected with the university. That's all.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So I attended a Louisville Library Board of Trustees meeting, and I suggest that we have a link to their calendar, their library calendar, on our website. Do we have that?
I thought we did. I'd have to double check.
Well, something, maybe somehow put it on
Well-
our calendar, or there's a link on our calendar at each day that you can click over to theirs. I don't know, something that kind of promotes some of their activities. And then there are 2 members that are resigning. They've been there for 13 years. And I just wanted to broach this idea to the board before I ever even went to the Louisville Library on this. But there's 7 board members, and we take up about 25%, something, maybe even more than that, hard to say, as far as their checkouts from our town, our residents. And so that comes out to, about 1.5 board members. So I'm kind of wondering if we could discuss maybe at the retreat if we want to approach the Louisville Library and see if we can get another board member seat. Whether that, I think it should be someone from the residents of Superior, not the board member here. We have 1 board member, myself, but it would really be great that if we could add a resident to that board.
With the other 6 that are on the board, are they all
Everybody's
council members, or they're
They're all Louisville residents, every one of them. And they have a board liaison that is from their city council.
I think that's a great idea if we're gonna, if our long-term plans
Right.
are to be there doing
Yeah.
that. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Exactly, and I always feel I'm there in a government capacity, I'm there representing the residents, but I'm not there representing a Louisville, or, I'm sorry, a Superior resident in the context of these Louisville residents, because I'm thinking I have a different hat. And I think it really would be a great opportunity for Superior.
Yeah.
So I wanted, if we could put that on the retreat, okay. Then I have another thing that I want, well, two things I want to talk to you about. Either we put it on the retreat or not. The first one is, and I know that the members are here, with OSAC and PROSTAC. There is a new proposed trail on the Remington property that's in the open space. And as I recall back when we approved this, we talked to Remington, and their first comments were, well, sure, of course we will put a trail to connect to regional trails, but we'd like to see if there is a social trail that develops first before we actually put the trail out there. And that's what I recall. I know that was a discussion. I looked it up, but whether it was put on this particular PD plan, I don't know. But anyhow, going forward, I really think that OSAC and PROSTAC need to weigh on this trail because, first of all, it's open space, so it needs to be vetted by Open Space Advisory Committee, and being also a trail in Superior, PROSTAC needs to look at it. So I'm recommending that both of them look at it, and I'm hoping that everyone here is interested in that, or is this something that we're going to need to talk about at the retreat next week?
Or could we talk about it at the end of the meeting? I mean, would you, are we up
Whatever
against
you
a
wanna do.
time issue? is
Well, I
my
know they're
question.
here, and I
the
know
oth-
they're here for public comment.
Okay,
So,
well, and I'd like to hear that, but I also think our retreat, we could be there for 2 days if we keep adding things to it.
Well, we haven't had
Well,
one for
you know,
7 months.
As I know, I'm not sure I've added anything much
Well,
on the retreat.
it was already a full agenda, so.
Well, all right.
That's the issue.
Then you're really not going to like this one I'm adding.
So are we going to talk about that?
At the
that
retreat or
property? No,
after?
tonight sometime.
I would like to talk about it
Well,
Okay.
later.
Yeah.
Can
Well,
we
we
do
know
it-
that we have two members that are coming up for
Sure.
public comment.
Yeah, that'll spur the
So
discussion.
that, exactly.
Okay, let's add it to the end of the meeting. Are we good with that?
That's fine.
Okay.
But we will hear them for public comment. We're
Yes.
not
Right. asking
them to wait to the end of the meeting.
Well, we're going to hear them at public comment, but then the board is going to talk
Okay,
about it at
that's
the end of
fine.
the meeting.
And then the last one, I definitely want to add this to the retreat.
I'm not coming.
Now you're not coming, but you know what I'm going to
We
say.
can't
No, I
have
don't
it
know
if
what
you're
you're gonna
not
say.
coming,
You want to
Joe.
come for this one.
It's not
I have to be out at 3 o'clock. Grandkids are beckoning,
All right.
3 p.m.
I want to discuss the 250-foot buffer restoration and what bucket of funds this is going to be coming from. And I think that that's a really important conversation because to just say it's coming from the TIF is not really good enough for me. And I really want to discuss what specific bucket it's coming from.
That's a discussion item for the 14th meeting, right? December 14th?
That's-
Well, and I think this
I
is a
think that's-
retreat discussion as well.
I can add it to the list.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm done.
I would be more in favor of having it at an open meeting
Yeah,
where
that's
it's.
what I think.
Well, our
it's got-
retreat is an open meeting.
It is, but it's not recorded and it doesn't have.
It's not a
I don't think
decision-making
people want to be there for
meeting.
3 hours.
Well,
So it-
I do, I mean, I don't, I think it's great. I think we should talk about it at the public meeting, no matter what. But I also think this is a discussion for the board as well to talk about.
I think that the discussion is to help us again review the TIF buckets, the tax increment financing buckets on Exhibit B, and make sure we understand where certain things are supposed to be coming out of. That might be a good item to put on there, which is
Yeah.
just a,
You're
and
right.
we just got on our Dropbox a week or so ago, the most recent view of expenses that were approved as eligible for TIF financing or
And
TIF
basically,
reimbursement.
what I'm saying is, that we discuss it and fully understand it, what buckets there are. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have to come up with any kind of solution. That's not what I'm trying to discuss here. I'm trying to understand all the different buckets and what they represent.
And how something gets to become an eligible expense within a bucket. That would be a good discussion.
Okay.
Review discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
Review. The bucket list.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Where are we on announcements? You're done?
You can move on to the next person.
Okay, that'd be me. On the 12th of November, I went to the mayors and commissioners meeting, and there's continued discussion about lobbyists. And most of the group does feel like that we need continued presence with federal lobbyists through the mayors and commissioners group, but there's a growing consensus that we need state lobbyists as well. There's some thought that there'd be potential for more state transportation projects this year, and so that's at the next meeting we should be finalizing the lobbyist decision for 2016. On the 18th, I attended the Boulder Valley Real Estate Conference, the Fall Real Estate Conference at the University of Colorado. This is put on by BizWest, which is the publisher of Boulder County Business Report. And I joined a panel discussion with representatives from all the county municipalities, larger ones, Erie, Louisville, Lafayette, Boulder, Longmont, and Broomfield. Each gave some updates on what developments were going on in their towns, and it was great to be a part of that, to not only hear what else is going on, but also to deliver firsthand what was going on in Superior. And I think the group appreciated having our perspective there, and I'm going to continue to make sure that we're present at events like that. A couple of upcoming events. The Sock It To 'Em campaign is going on. Encourage people to donate new pairs of socks. Got a
Question,
drop
Rob.
off here at Town Hall. Yes?
You mentioned at the last meeting that there was the stocking run, there was going to be, have some
Yes.
connection with the Sock It To 'Em. So
Yes.
I know
I'll mention
people
that.
that are signing up to run, and that aren't necessarily from Superior. So I want to be able to tell them, if you bring socks, we're going to collect them, and we want
Yes.
new socks.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's on the 13th. We've got the stocking run here in town, and encourage people to bring new socks to that event, and we'll have a drop-off at that event as well. And try to promote that in our communications to people that sign up. Trustee Sorelli mentioned the Count the Light event at Asti Park, December 5th, 5 to 7. A great event last year, first year of that event, and I look forward to that again. December 12th, Skate with Santa at the Boulder Valley Ice Facility, always a popular event. So, and then the 13th is the stocking run. So that's it for my announcements. Trustee
On
Pennington.
the state lobbyist discussion at Metro Mayors, I have nervousness about that. It has more so to do with, to make sure that the position we take at Metro Mayors.
Now, just to clarify, this is mayors and commissioners
Or mayors and
coalition.
commissioners.
Yeah, this is the Boulder County.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
the
mayors and
Boulder-
commissioners, wherever it is.
Yes.
That we're in agreement on the stance the Superior, Town of Superior board takes on a particular issue, that lobbyist will take to the State House, because,
Sure.
we've got to make sure we're in agreement.
I think it's less so about lobbying and more so about having someone that's attending all of these committee meetings and reporting back to the group on things that could be of concern to us. It's not so much going out and pushing any particular agenda item, but I get what you're saying. Okay, Town Manager?
Thanks. 2 items. One, we have my list has probably at least 20 items for the retreat. Some may be quick, but some will not. How do you want to handle this? Do you want me to send something to you tomorrow and you can chime in on what can wait until the next retreat?
So prioritize.
Or do you just want to, at the meeting, decide what we want to discuss and I'll
I
list?
think send the list,
Yeah.
and I think we also should look to having a retreat in January as well, and that way we can carry some things over, and we should get on a quarterly, try
Sure.
to stay on a quarterly schedule.
Okay.
But also, can we put the items that are the quickest at the top? so that we can run through as many.
You can't,
Importance.
you can't predict.
What's quick to you is.
Okay, then send it out
Yeah.
with that premise, and we can all
There you go.
weigh in on that.
Okay. And the second item is Alex and our staff's been working with the contractor for the interchange construction, and we're working with them to try to get 3 lanes open by Thursday. We'd have 3 lanes in each direction for the next 4 days, and then the contractor would come in the week after Thanksgiving and take back that center lane because they're still working on the pedestrian median, so I'm hoping we'll have something in
Matt,
place before Thursday.
Question about the timing on the lights. Is that kind of an evolving thing?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you get to, right before you're gonna go into the diverging diamond, you get a red light, and at certain hours, you still get all that traffic from Marshall go on, and then
Yeah.
they're sitting in the intersection. And the light turns for you, the other light on the other side doesn't change at the same time,
Right.
so they still sit there.
It's an evolving process. It's really hard to time the lights now because we only have 2 lanes in each direction. It'll be
Right.
much easier once we have all 3 lanes in place.
Okay.
But our staff they made an adjustment today because during lunch hour, southbound McCaslin was backing up. So it's something we're looking at every day and making adjustments. And this weekend, we'll have to make adjustments, starting Thursday through the weekend because we'll have 3 lanes, and so.
So
yeah.
when you say we make adjustments, are we doing it on our side in unison with Louisville on their side too? or is it
Actually,
just one?
the arrangement we have is the town Superior makes those adjustments, and we consult with the city of Louisville, but the actual adjustments we'll make.
Okay.
And so that's how it's been working.
Quickly, probably the most important thing I was going to bring up, I forgot. On Friday night snow, a car was unable to make it up McCaslin, and the fire department came out, and I got a call, and I suppose other people did. So has that been analyzed to see whether or not it was a case of not putting enough materials down per the discussion we had during the snow renewal contract? Or was it a case of bald tires on a kid's car? Have we analyzed
Well,
it?
Friday night, there was ice everywhere.
And actually,
Every town.
up South Boulder Road towards Louisville and Lafayette, there were a dozen cars just stopped. They couldn't even make it. They were just skidding all over the place.
We typically try to get out on the hills specifically because of the grade and the difficulty getting up them, but sometimes, depending on if you have rain and it's turning into snow, that makes it more difficult, but we try to get out there as soon as we can.
It wasn't a case of a reduced
This is the first
application
This is the first I
of
heard of it, so.
mag chloride?
Didn't we tell them
I'll
to
have
back
to.
off on it because they were using too much?
Well-
Right,
before?
I'd like to hear from Alex. Did you dissect it, and what was the issue there?
Sure. We were called out at 6 o'clock on Friday evening, and we were on the road at 6:30, putting our material. We both put chemicals and ice slicer down. I haven't followed that car up the hill, and that car had bald tires, couldn't move. I mean, I saw that car going up, and, I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, I made it up, no problem. I saw that car coming back down, I saw him going up, and the tires were terrible.
Okay, well, that's the type of analysis I find useful.
Okay.
And by the way, we've equipped our contractors with GPS devices, and we have reports. You can get online and watch where they go, and we have reports of all the roads they go, the exact times they go out, how much material they put down. So we have
Okay.
much better reports if anybody would like to look at those.
Okay. Anything further? Town manager, anything further?
No.
Okay. Town attorney?
No.
Town clerk?
No.
Okay. All right, now the moment you've been waiting for, most likely in the public comment section. We open public comment to anyone who'd like to make comments. If you would, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. If you're making comments that have been made before, just keep them brief if you could, please. When you come to the microphone, just state your name and address for the record and speak into the microphone. So just give a wave if you'd like to come up, and we'll welcome the first guest up. Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Richard Copter. I live at 411 West Charles Street. And I see this proposed trail that you have here on the south edge of the Remington project. I think is what you guys are creating here, if you guys approve this trail, is a parking lot on our west end of the original town. People are going to come here to get on that trail and take off and go with it. And, you know, we don't want all that traffic in the original town. And another thing it's going to cause, the people coming up underneath the bridge is going to come right through the middle of town, right over to get there. They're not going to go this other way. So if you're going to propose a trail, I say that I don't want a trail there, and I don't think we need it there. Because I sit there every Saturday and Sunday, and I feel like I'm the information center for the trails for the town of Superior. I must talk to 25 to 30 people on a weekend that are lost. And I hope that you guys would consider not doing that trail. And, you know, it's just not, you know, it's dumping out right in the middle of the original town on the edge there. And it's going to impact all of our neighbors. And if you want me to, I'll go from neighbor to neighbor and I'll get a petition signed to show you how many people's against it. You know, 4th Avenue and Charles is going to become a parking lot. And if you go over here on the Colton trailhead on a Saturday or Sunday and look at all the cars there, it's all that's going to do is do like they did over here on Marshall Road. They finally had to move that one. That on 170 there, they had a trailhead there for a while, Boulder County, and that thing got so clogged on weekends with cars parking there that they took that and moved it clear over on 68 7th Street over there, 66th Street. So please, you know, think about this trail, and I hope that you guys would really consider not putting all that traffic through our neighborhood. I mean, everybody likes to ride bicycles, and like I said, I just think that we're going to end up with half the city of Boulder and half Lafayette and Lisville coming through the original town. So please think about that, would you? And also, I see where that trail goes across the Hake Ditch, which is a historical ditch. I noticed that they have ex-Hake Ditch. Well, that ditch is still there. It has not been abandoned. And so we need to consider that. You know, we have to sit down if that's going to go through that trail, because it crosses that ditch in 2 places. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Next, public comment.
Hi, Sandy Hammerly, 2855 Rock Creek Circle. I am actually the co-chair of ProStack, and I am speaking on behalf of ProStack. Also in attendance tonight are George Kuffner, Darryl McCool, and Corey Oshner, who are currently on ProStack, and Jim Payne, who is the former chair of ProStack. I'd just like to read a statement from ProStack, and it does regard the trail in Coal Creek Crossing. As part of ProStack's agenda on November 18th, the committee discussed whether the proposed trail alignment in the Coal Creek Crossing development needs further review before it is completed. The committee voted unanimously, with 1 absence, to pursue this matter further, and we'd like to take this opportunity to address the board. ProStack's primary concern is that the trail alignment has not received proper review by the committee and by the public in general. The trail alignment, as it exists on the Coal Creek Crossing final development plan that was approved by the board in October 2012, did exist on that plan and on previous preliminary development plans from earlier years. However, there was no consensus among committee members and staff as to whether ProStack was provided with an opportunity to comment on the trail specifically. On July 18, 2012, the committee did pass the following motion. The committee continues to support the project as it complies with the goals and objectives of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. The concern is that ProStack was not specifically asked to comment on the trail alignment. As a reminder, what is now Town of Superior open space on the southern border of the Coal Creek Crossing development was originally private property owned by the developer. Therefore, on the earliest development plans, this trail alignment would have been on the developer's property. The development was then reduced in size, and the Oshner property was added to the town's open space in 2009. However, the trail alignment did not change. ProStack would like to address whether the fact that this is now town open space changes the need and desire for the proposed trail alignment. This will include a review of its impact on the open space area, the Hake Homestead, and original town residents, and its anticipated usage by residents of Coal Creek Crossing. In summary, the committee would like to ask that the board add to our 2015 work plan an item to review the soft surface trail alignment within the Coal Creek Crossing development. We look forward to the board's response. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
I'm Bob McCool at 312 West Coal Creek Drive. Since we're talking about the trail, I'll comment on that. I've looked, I don't even see any need for a trail there. We have entrance points on the west side of town. You can access the trails up the dirt road on Coal Creek, and to put that in there seems like an odd thing to do. So I agree with Rick, and that bringing that into another trailhead into town doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I'm actually wanted to speak a little bit to the Superior Commons discussion and the multifamily proposal that was brought up in the work session. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of you for listening to that closely and being thoughtful on what this means. I mean, that whole area is zoned medium density residential, and there's a lot that can happen just by right, I understand, and we've been kind of expecting it. Part of the problem, which I've brought up before with our area, is that we do ad hoc planning by development proposal. It hasn't been thoughtful planning for that area. And so now we're ending up with a roughly 2 or 3 block by 4 block single family residential area at Coal Creek Crossing, sitting next to a 1 block by 2 block multifamily, zoned multifamily area, which is likely going to turn multifamily, next to Original Town, which is roughly a 4 block by 5 block single family residential. So that wouldn't be done by design. I mean, you wouldn't sit and plan that, but we do have to deal with it. And in where we have opportunity to deal with it, I'm really hoping we can. And so some of my thoughts on that, I feel like I know that there's clearly investment opportunity being taken advantage of and looked at in our area. This group that was here, there are 6 people sitting here for 9 townhome development units? I don't think so. So there's a lot bigger intent. They have been talking to other residents in town. There have been pictures being taken. So I can't say what's happening. It's only observation. So be aware that this isn't, we want to put 9 units because that's a cool thing to do. There's clearly a bigger agenda. You don't have that many people sitting in front of you to build 9 townhomes. So the other consideration is if we're really wanting to build that out into multifamily, which is likely. I mean, we've known this for years. You've got Fifth Avenue sitting over there, and so it's time to start thinking about Fifth Avenue and whether or not the town builds that street out. If that's what you want to do, if you want to bring in multifamily and try to get this thing built up to bring more residents into town, that was one of the pros I think that was mentioned on the development plan. Bring more people in to support our commercial development. Then consider what bringing more people in means and make sure you put in the infrastructure to handle it. And Fifth would be a nice way to maybe consider keeping that type of development off not all of it, but at least a good portion of it off of Fourth. And the other consideration is if this town wants to start building out multifamily and bring more and more residential, then let us get together and start talking about whether we want to change our zoning. There was discussions, I don't know, what was it, 10 years ago, 10 years ago maybe, about Coal Creek got together and wanted ACS, zoning for the street, or RCS, instead of RCS, sorry, I have a client, ACS. RCS zoning, you guys would consider it. So as we start thinking about this, if that's where you're going to go, the people who live in Original Town who have invested in that property as long as 50, 75, 100 years ago, us 15 or 18 years ago, keep us in mind, because we got investors coming in here who want to take advantage of some pretty amazing real estate. I mean, this is probably some of the most valuable real estate that has opportunity available to it in the county. And I would just ask that you keep all that in mind as we kind of move through this new idea of multifamily in Original Town. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi, Tricia Dunham, 3574 Huron Peak, and I'm also the chair of OSAC. So I did want to say first, we also want the opportunity to look at the trail on Cold Creek Crossing there, and hope that the board will direct us to do so, because we haven't had that opportunity yet. And then the other thing that I wanted to comment on is just our notes that are coming forward to you that Sandy mentioned. The first item being our OSAC mission and goals, that we hope you review them and allow us to put those up on the website and accept them. And then the other being, excuse me, our discussion around our trail plan and looking at the open space fund and the possibility of recommending releasing some of those funds for trail building. And we identified our top 8. The reason why it's the top 8 and not the top 7 is, number one, when we were doing the trail plan, we were looking at the Hudgens Reservoir, and then we've decided that that's not optimum at this time, so we will be taking that down, so then it will be items 2 through 8. So if you would review those notes, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi, Mike Myers, 2535 Clayton Circle in Superior. I'm a 12-year resident of Superior. And for 10 of those years, I've been involved in youth sports. I'm here to put my support on the YMCA and their activities they do for our kids in our town. One of the things that was mentioned was this relationship that the Y has with the town of Superior in soccer. And one of the things I also want to add is not only soccer, but it's basketball. I've been coaching youth sports with the YMCA for 10 years, over 30 teams in soccer and basketball. And the YMCA not only is that resource, a valuable resource for the town in soccer, but also for basketball. Besides the YMCA, there's really not another organization in the local area that provides basketball, a program for our kids, maybe besides Louisville Rec, who has a small one, but just want to emphasize the importance of the YMCA in basketball. So the Y provides that foundation for youth sports in soccer and basketball for our kids. It provides the opportunity for kids of all ages and of all abilities to play, from 4-year-olds all the way up into 14-year-olds. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with youth sports these days. It seems like it's an arms race to bigger and better in club sports and escalating costs. And the Y programs offers that affordable, known, nationwide program that people can go to. For 13 years, the YMCA has grown their program in this area into a really good organization that people are familiar with, that provides a good program for our kids in our town. From a parent perspective, like I said, it's a known resource. People put their kids into it. It's a good organization. If you go down to community park fields on Saturdays during the spring and the fall, there's, it's kids of Superior participating in the program. There's a large group, I don't know how many we said, 600 plus kids participating in it. So it's a really good program. And also from a parent perspective, we just want our kids, a lot of the parents just want their kids to have a place to play sports. And the Y provides that, and has provided that for a number of years. From a coach's perspective, the Y does an excellent job in training their coaches through clinics, through education, and is that support organization that's behind the coaches that are interfacing with the kids in our town. So a good organizational background. And primarily for our kids, the Y provides this opportunity for kids who just want to play sports. A lot of kids in our areas don't want to go on to club sports, club soccer. They just want to go out with their friends and have the opportunity to play. And I know that the Y has provided that opportunity for kids, for my kids, my 3 boys, for 10 years. And then when they've chose to go on to other sports, club sports, they can do that. But if they always want to come back, the Y provides that opportunity for them to do that. So I think dropping the YMCA from being available to the kids of Superior would be a mistake. The Y is a valuable resource for the community, the town, the parents, and the kids of Superior. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
On a side note, I'd like to thank the town for the work you've done on the interchange. I think the diverging diamond is an excellent solution to kind of a difficult engineering problem, and I know you guys have probably taken some flack for that and a lot of concern, but I think it's a really good implementation. So thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
Greetings, thank you. My name's Scott Cunningham. I live at 1640 Masters Court. To echo some of the sentiment here on the YMCA, I've been a coach and a resident now for the last 2.5 years at the YMCA. My 5 and 8-year-old both play. I'm also a coach at the Treble Soccer Club. I do both. And one of the interesting things I think, my wife was telling me about this, she's part of the university as a pediatrician at Children's, and is that the economic stimulus actually, with the 75% that are coming in, actually creates a socioeconomic bridge that actually happens. And so we actually get a very diverse group of kids from the supporting area and communities that come to our community to play every single Saturday, which I think is a fantastic cultural element too, that probably has been overlooked a little bit. The other element here is removing myself from Treble, because it's not the hill for us to die on. We've had FC Boulder sponsor Superior Elementary at the Superior Fall Fling. We've had Boulder County in here. We've had Broomfield Soccer Club. And one of the things about Broomfield Soccer Club, and I can't understand yet, is why Broomfield Soccer Club is the default or proposed de facto soccer club for this community. And I think that needs to be looked at. And I also think that, to echo some of the sentiments here as well from the board, is that there is no timeline. Seasons end in the spring. New seasons for new age groups oftentimes begin in the fall. So, and I even offered up to Patrick in an email earlier to formulate a committee of residents and to figure out what's the best course of action for soccer in our community, but also thinking about how to draw in other communities to help, at least expand upon the cultural element that soccer does provide. Comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. George Kuffner, 7520 West Cold Creek Drive. I'm asking for you guys to look into a Superior Municipal Code to change for agricultural grazing rights on town of Superior open space. I'd like to bring this forward to you. I think the town could use a lot of beneficiary from it and cut the cost of mowing in our town on our open space to agricultural grazing rights with beef cattle, as well as horses. It's something I'd like you guys to look into and get back to me. I really would appreciate it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What specific spaces are you talking about?
Well, let's see here. The town of Superior's got the Shinshan property. I do believe I think it's right around 7 acres. It's settled. It's right up here on the side. Instead of paying to maintain landscaping with Vargas to cutting deck mowing, there's a good, I'd say it's a good amount of grass that you could turn a couple of head of cow in or a couple of head of horses on to graze it down, as well as it would kind of bring back to Superior the old historical side. Hey, look, there's horses. There's pretty horses on the side of the road. It's pretty neat. It's, as well. A lot of my family members has grazing culture rights or agricultural rights, as well as Boulder County up here on the side of the hill on the Caslin as well. And I would like you guys to look at changing the code for it and getting back to me. Something that you and town staff, you guys and town staff can look at.
George, is that perhaps a ProStack thing? I mean, you're being on
well,
ProStack. I mean, or OSAC. Could that be something our committees could look at and then research it further and then bring it to us?
Well, I've asked town staff, and it is a code that was, I think it was 2012 that the town board voted against agricultural grazing rights.
I don't remember.
I never
specifically.
remember.
You don't remember anything like that?
I
can
think
get the
we
paper.
probably voted to not change anything, is most likely.
I can.
Okay, well,
Martin
we'll definitely research it. I mean, it's
absolutely.
just an interesting idea.
Of course, as well as I sit on ProSac, but as a resident, I'm here as a resident tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Can we look into that?
Okay, it's reasonable.
And also, there would be the town would sustain, I guess, would benefit from it because the rancher who grazes cattle on open space pays money for livestock in Boulder County. I know because I've done it. I'd like us to have our, grazing rights.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
They do that on the Verhey property as well.
That's right. They do it all over here in Boulder County. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
I'm Uche Obuchi, 1307 Hyacinth Way. I think a lot. I want to talk about the community sports program, and I think a lot of what I had wanted to say has already been said by prior commenters. But one thing I wanted to sort of add and amplify. But I do want to just quickly reiterate the things that have been said. That there isn't a hurry. The fall season is generally the start. When I'm also a coach with the YMCA, and that's usually we often start out with those teams in fall and then continue them in through spring. So that's one consideration. And then the cultural diversity was something I was going to talk about. The YMCA does seem to do a good job of bringing that in, and I think that's good for the kids whom I coach who are from Superior, and also the YMCA spirit of sort of all abilities to play and basically truly recreational soccer. There are a lot of soccer clubs that I have observed in the area who claim to be recreational soccer, but they aren't really. They are sort of just a lower tier of competitive soccer, and it can be a difficult, scenario for the kids. The one thing that I'm not sure was brought up that I wanted to think about, it was really eye-opening to hear the $38,000 annual budget item, and then the proportion of the residents who participate in that who are from Superior. So that's thank you for that. That's eye-opening, and I'm wondering if there's a way in the process of talking through what would be, the right way to approach this, let's say until next fall, to get comments from the different people who want to use these facilities to find out how can this be looked at as a resource, as a pool to help those within those residents of Superior who might possibly need, some assistance fully participating in the sports. Could that be something where that is, it is a subsidy to some extent, but that subsidy is sort of earmarked against, this has to be for fee reductions against Superior residents or it has to be prioritized that way. I'm just wondering if there are ways to sort of turn that less from a subsidy for, say, the YMCA or any other party and more into a resource for the community to have some additional families participate in sports. So, thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
Hi, I'm Maggie Reuter. I live at 2194 Jerosa Lane. I'm here to represent the tennis sports community in Rock Creek. And I just wanted to thank the YMCA for helping us grow that program. I don't think a lot of people are as familiar with that program, but the tennis sports involvement has grown in the last 3 years from about 35 kids to nearly 200 kids. And there's been increasing pressure for tennis courts availability. So it's just something I wanted to get on your radar screen, and just also thank the Y for helping us grow that program. It's really thriving. It reaches, maybe more so than some of the other sports. It really reaches from 4-year-olds to 90-year-olds in our town. It's a sport that really brings people together and is a lifelong sport. So there's a lot of potential here for people to really enjoy the tennis program that's developing in our town. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
Daryl McCool, 312 West Coal Creek Drive. Thank you all for asking such great questions tonight about that development. I would really like to invite you to come down and look at that property. There is a very sweet 100-year-old home sitting on that property. And while you're down there, you can also walk just up the block and see where the trailhead is proposed. It would just be a great field trip so you can really get a sense of what we're talking about. The one big question that I have is if we allow this developer to go outside our land use code with 5-foot driveways, what benefit is that to us and our residents? I mean, I can see the dollar signs and the money going in their pockets, but what are we as townspeople getting from allowing them to go outside what our code actually says? And the one other thing, just really briefly, they said basements. I don't know if any of you actually really heard that, but we've all had that basement discussion. Mm-hmm. And basements mean building up because you can't go more than 6 feet deep in original town. So that 29-foot height they're talking about, how high are we talking if they really are planning on doing basements? So thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Hi, my name is Jamie Holstein. I'm with the YMCA Boulder Valley. And I just wanted to first say thank you for the conversations today and everything, and for to just make sure that you guys understood that we are in this partnership, and we are willing to look at things and discuss. It's never been off the table. And I hope that we can continue to find ways to partner and provide great programs for the kids in Superior. I also wanted to address, in the handout that was there was some inaccurate information, so I'd be happy to send additional information so that you guys had that. You were comparing things apples to apples, to give that to you. But we serve a lot of kids. We provide financial assistance for kids and for families, and we'd like to continue to do that and open up that process and open up the dialogue to look at what we can do in the future. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
So what activities or what sports do you supply or service for Superior?
So, and I don't know if there's a difference in language, but from our standpoint, the $38,000 contract covers, and again, this is from our standpoint, this is how we've always understood it, is soccer, tennis, basketball, lacrosse, and baseball. So those are the ones that we've covered that we give a resident rate to. So there's a different level of rates, and that's where we've given those rates to. We then also pay facility usage rates on the tennis courts on top of what we pay for the fields. So from our standpoint, we've added, and this contract has definitely, in the 10 years I've been involved with it, has ebbed and flowed, and there's been different things added and taken away. So it's not new to us to look at it and look at different ways. But those are the sports that we see us providing to the town for that, as well as the expenses we see that go back.
And one other question.
Yeah.
Do you roughly know how many participants, Superior resident participants, are in your program per year?
Per year. This number on here, that 516 or that 514, is just soccer. And so
Okay.
out of
But
the
I mean-
YMCA Boulder Valley, it says the 1,800 people, that's everyone that plays in Boulder, Lafayette, at our Lafayette location in here. So that's 514 is soccer. I could get you the number for all of our
Be
residents. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
And can I ask a couple questions? So the tennis contract is a separate contract, because as you remember, we had contracts with tennis instructors
Yes,
that
we did.
went negative. We went to the Y directly and asked if they could provide that for us, and they were great, and they've grown the program.
Matt, can you, real quickly, I know this isn't the time to do it, but just so I don't forget, what is the agreement with the tennis contract? How does that work?
I have to follow up with you on that. I don't know the details unless you.
I don't have the
okay,
detail.
Yeah,
To
So
me,
do we,
it-
do we actually
That's-
pay, do we pay the YMCA to implement that program, or is the YMCA
I
paying
believe
us for
it's
tennis
more
court
like
use?
the structure we have with the clubs.
Yeah, okay.
So we
and
pay
then-
a usage fee.
And then the rates that are charged for Superior residents are the same as the Y member rates, or are they
So
different?
the agreement that we went into, I think this got changed probably 6 or 7 years ago. I don't, it's been a while, but the agreement in the contract says that the Superior rate, so with the YMCA, you have a member or non-member rate. So you're a member of the Y and you get a certain rate if you're a
Right, yeah,
non-member. So the Superior rate isn't the non-member rate. The contract states that it has to be no more than 25% above the member rate. And that's always, that's a number that was kind of given to us, again, willing to look at that. And, yeah.
Just a request, when you supply the numbers,
Yeah.
as well as to our own staff, I want to know if those are unique individuals. For example,
The
for
500
soccer, 514 unique individuals, or if somebody takes,
Duplicates, yep, I can get those.
in other words, how many kids in town benefit?
I
Okay.
can definitely dedupe those.
One more
Thank you.
question, and while we're on it.
Great idea.
Are you able to put together the same type of program without receiving a $38,000 fee from the town of Superior?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's definitely definitely a financial consideration we have to do. That we'll have to just look at how that looks for us in terms of fees and things like that. Because we're a nonprofit. It's not something that we take lightly with the fees that we use, and we try to appropriate them the most efficient and effective way possible. So I can't answer exactly what that looks like, but again, I'm willing to figure out what we can do to make sure that we continue this partnership. And again, it's not just a financial wanting to do this. We have relationships with people in this town. We have things that we can do better. We have things that we do good, and I think that this is 13 years or 12 years of doing this, I feel like it's still the right way to go. Obviously, I have a bias, but and my sons participate in the programs here in Superior. So personally, it's a great program to see kids in.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Once, yes.
Good evening. Jackson Dreiling, YMCA Boulder Valley. Thank you again for the discussion tonight. I wanted to reiterate the reason that we are a nonprofit and we provide these programs and subsidies, I might add, financial assistance open to all Superior residents annually, every year, which is something we do as part of our business model as a sports and opportunity for all. And much as Mike Myers mentioned, our philosophy, our program covers opportunity for kids to play multiple platforms and really tries to fight and buck the system that is continually taking place in our country of club and specialization sports. And we've seen from pediatricians to the like that specializing in one sport too early is dangerous for a child's development. And the number one thing that the Y is for youth development. And that, more than any other reason, is why we do what we do in Superior and why we want to continue to do what we do in Superior. So please, as we go throughout this process, I hope you keep that in account and understand that, this is a mission-based program for us, as is everything that we do. Yeah.
Question. When you guys go back and discuss this, if you're going to give us some data, it'd be interesting to know how many of those participants, especially Superior participants, actually cross over and do the multiple sports. So how many are doing basketball, how many are doing soccer, how many are doing whatever else you're offering here in the town of Superior?
Yeah, absolutely. We can get that for you. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Let's move on to the item 12 is presentations, and we have none. Item 13 is consent agenda. We have items A through E on the consent agenda to approve. We've pulled items F and G. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda, A through E. Motion by Trustee Hansen, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. Item 13F on the consent agenda, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Veris Environmental LLC for services for wastewater treatment plant, biosolids hauling, and land application for Superior Metropolitan District Number 1. Trustee Sorelli.
Well, we had some conversation about this agreement last meeting, and so we've got some more of the history here, but my major concern now is that we are, and I don't recall how many option years our policy is, whether it's 4 total.
It's usually 1.
And then 4.
And then 3.
1 and 3.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
a total of 4 years between
4 years, and then we go out to bid,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
out, do an RFP.
So why not include the number of years, the correct number of years? Seems like we'd be exercising first option right this year. Is that what we're doing? And then have 2 more option years after that?
Right. We have
Instead of undefined number of options. That's really.
My other suggestion, I guess, is, because it sounds like your issue is with Section B, the automatic renewal. Is that the?
Well, defining a term in the contract.
Right, yeah. The other thing you could do is you could delete the automatic renewal section, and we just bring the agreement back to the board each year. Or we could modify that to, say, 2.
That's what I was thinking. Just call out the number of option years, and then
It's not automatic either.
Yeah.
The board actually has to approve the every new year with the new prices, so it wouldn't be automatic. We could
Yeah. As long as it stays like that.
But
No, I'd say every year, because anything could happen during a year. So it come back to the board, and we say, yes, we want to continue to roll it over for another year. That's what we're talking about, right?
Are we looking to change policy, or are we looking to?
No, that's the way it's been.
I'm looking to enforce the policy.
Right.
Okay.
Consistent with the policy.
Yeah, so having presumably a contract that could run forever. I mean, you know.
It says in the cover memo, for an unlimited number of automatic renewals.
You know, I can tell you that's not totally accurate. Just, if you look at section 2B, what it says is that every year the contractor comes back with the updated prices, which are basically linked to inflation. And then the board has 30 days after they receive those new prices to decide whether or not to renew the contract.
But at some point in time, we're supposed to be recompeting.
Right.
That's
Every 4
exactly
years.
right, yeah.
And then this would not reinforce the recompetition somewhere down the road after the fourth year. During the fourth year, we should be doing a competition.
This is the second year, this initial term on this new contract. So
Yeah.
we basically say, you know, that they'll have up to 2 renewal options.
Right.
And the town.
So I would approve this contract subject to that words of up to 2 renewal options being added into the option provision.
And staff has no objection to that because that meets our policy.
Yeah.
And just as a note, like, that would actually the town is getting more rights out of this. than
I
we're
understand
having to
that,
get.
except that you're not competing. Maybe.
Right, that's the issue.
Yeah.
I guess the other question I have, though, do all your contracts have a limit like that in the language? No. I mean, because I don't think,
That's what I can't remember, but we do have a policy of
because
limiting.
I know our standard agreements that we have for you don't have that, and that's just up to town staff to track that, and every 4 years you rebid it. So this
Well,
wouldn't change that. The way
If this is a change, I'm fine with not changing it, but I could not remember, and, you know, it seemed to me like having unlimited options, and by the way, these aren't really options, these are soft. We don't have a unilateral right to just go and keep going and keep going.
Yeah,
But-
I think your point's a great one, if it was an automatic renewal. Because you just every year be automatically
Yeah.
renewing, and it doesn't do that, it's gotta come back to you every year. So I think that like any other contract you have, you just say, hey, after like 4 years, we're gonna rebid it, and you don't have an obligation to accept the renewal. So you would see this every year anyways.
Okay.
So we can add your language, it's just more protection, but if we don't do it in other contracts and town staff's charged with just tracking it, it won't violate your policy, and you have to follow your policy anyways. So I think your point's great, it's just up to you how you wanna draft it.
So can, Matt, you answer that question? This four-year RFP every 4 years, I thought was standard. Is
It
it?
is.
It is.
In
Well,
all of our contracts?
not in all so
No,
like our contract with the sheriff's office, for
Yeah.
instance, we don't, we don't send that out to bid every
No.
4 years. That's just kind of a
What
standard
other-
agreement.
what
But,
other
but for all of our typical
exceptions?
Snow removal.
operations, snow removal,
Trash?
trash, we do every 4
wastewater
years.
treatment,
You know,
all this,
our landscape contract, we do every 4 years,
Right.
so, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So why did we
So
choose
why are we-
not to do that in this one?
We did.
Where is it?
It doesn't actually.
It's not in,
None of your contracts actually have that 4-year like term written into them, but but town staff just enforces that policy every 4 years. You basically re-up it for a bid. This just has some different language than your normal contract, which frankly gives the town a little more rights than you normally would have. It basically says the contractor can't raise the price by more than inflation every year.
That's fine, that's great.
Yeah. And the town board has the option to pick it or not. It's not automatic. So I think I don't think you're actually.
I wasn't looking to change that language.
Yeah.
I think if the board is comfortable with trustee Sorelli's suggestion, we just add that
Absolutely.
to that
No
section.
problem. Put it in there.
So
and
can you
approve it.
restate that?
This is, my ultimate thing was to say this is, we're exercising first option and there's up to 2 more
Yeah, I
option
think I would
years.
just say there's, you know, 2 renewal options.
2
here.
renewal options,
Per the town's policy, because this is the first renewal, really,
Yeah.
even though it's a new agreement.
yeah. Is it, see, that's where we got confused
Yeah,
last
that's right.
week. Is this the second year, or is it,
It's how you want to look at it. I mean, this is a new agreement, but it's with the same contractor for the same services as last year, if I'm not mistaken.
but he provided 4 years up until
We
then?
rebid it at the end of 14, so 15 was the first year. So this would be the second renewal, and we have 2 more after that.
That's what I was thinking.
Right, yeah.
So
So
that's,
you get you get 2 renewal terms per this contract, because there's already been.
yeah, yeah.
It's a little confusing, for sure.
So that's what I would like to see, the language added, and unless you all feel like it's okay to let staff
I
track
would
it.
even be broader about it. I really don't want anything coming before us again with this confusion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're comfortable with that 4-year RFP, right? So let's make sure whatever language it's set, let's just borrow good language from other things and put it in, so that every 4 years we bid it out.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. My only point was that you don't do it for all your other contracts. We just track it. So it just seems like this is the one contract we're gonna put it in and not.
Well, but I think what Trustee Pennington, I'm hearing from you, is you'd like to see it in our standard agreement.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that.
Fine.
Why isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's board policy, but yet it's not in the contracts.
I think that makes it clear for everybody. It's-
We can make that change.
The only time it wouldn't be in a contract then is when you weren't looking for options.
Right, yeah.
And then you'd have to watch for that.
Sure.
Okay, so we got a motion
Well-
to
Yeah.
move it forward?
With that, motions to approve it with the change?
Yes.
Okay.
So I move that, where is it? What's the resolution number? Whatever.
Here it's,
Somebody have it?
Yeah.
I move that we approve Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, Resolution Number SMD Number 1-12, subject in substantial the form attached hereto, subject to adding language defining the option terms, the option years remaining on the contract.
second.
Okay, motion by Director Sorelli and second by Director Hanson. Roll call vote.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Polson?
Yes.
Gregoris? Oh, he's not here.
Not here.
Sorry. Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now for item 13G, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Ramey Environmental Compliance for the water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plant operations for Superior Metropolitan District Number 1. Trustee
So,
Sorelli.
let me jump into this with my concern and see if we're, essentially here, we're basically looking to continue this non-competitively for good reasons, I guess.
We're asking for an exception for the fact that we're in the middle of it, and
Yeah.
it takes a real staff effort to get this thing bid. I mean, we've got to find some qualified firms. We really got to go through the firm. This is like hiring staff, really. I mean, and you're gonna, you got to make sure they're familiar with the operations, that they can do the job.
And you brought up another point about the potential issue with Louisville, and so.
Right.
So I'm okay with all of that, but again, how long is this contract? Again, we have the unlimited option thing going, and
No, we expect to do it next year. We'll go back through the bidding process in the fall of 16.
so
and go
do
through
we
that.
have option language in this at all then?
It's the same language essentially as the previous one.
So then we
It
should.
just, there's no, yeah, I mean, this is the final year, and then we'll go through the rebidding.
I would
and
say
everything.
with this one, if that's your concern, do we just delete section 2B, is it 2B, on this one, if we're gonna go out to bid next year anyways, we'll have a new agreement with
And-
whoever we select. I will also like to say that staff has been very pleased with the work Ramey's done. They are active in the maintenance of our plans and suggesting capital improvement needs that are needed. Yeah, we've been
I'm
great
also-
on emergencies as well, so.
I'm in agreement with all of that. I'd also be good with, well, I might not be here to be good with, well, I won't be here next year, but should it be that you can't do it, then I'd like you to make the case to continue the contract on an individual basis, but not on an option basis.
Right.
So everybody knows what's going on. So I guess we're talking about no options in this continuation.
Right.
And that's the language change.
The only thing you're doing by taking that option out, I understand it's tracking, is you're basically losing the protection of the limit on the next year's price. So you take that option out, you no longer, they can raise their price to whatever they want next year, and you have to negotiate with them. You leave it in, it can only be the amount of inflation, period. And you can always not do it.
It's a good point, but theoretically, you're going competitive next year.
Right, but what, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but taking the language out, all it does is basically eliminate the protection for the town, if you can track things properly. And if you're concerned about not having the contract because the town just keep doing it and it's not on the contract, that's a different issue.
I'll do devil's advocate to that, though. If there is a newcomer in the market who's actually willing to have a lower cost than this cumulative base price plus inflation, we do want to know that. You know, there's nothing that makes these guys necessarily the cheapest, especially after it's been inflated and inflated and inflated. So.
But we always have the option of not renewing it.
Yeah, this will prevent you from going out and getting bids anyways. You can go out and get bids with this contract in place right now.
Right.
And all you have with these guys, these guys aren't gonna go any higher than inflation. Somebody else comes in lower, you don't do their deal, and you go with the other party. That's the only thing you're doing by taking it out, is you're just getting rid of the protection the town has. That's the only reason why I'm making a bigger deal out of this issue, because it's not a huge deal.
So if I understand this correctly, we're actually extending a year longer than we normally would. We would have gone out to bid already. So I don't necessarily have a problem with extending it, because I've heard from town staff that this is a good organization to work with, no problem. But I don't want to start going away from our policy. I think it's really important that we stick to that policy as close as possible. I just heard Alex say that we're going to rebid this next fall. Well, we're in the fall now, and we didn't have time to do it. So I would recommend that we start earlier in the year, perhaps first quarter. If it takes so long to bring people in to actually come out and look at it and all that, let's start much earlier in the year so that we can do it properly. And I'm assuming that we're going to go with the same organization next year, but let's just do the proper thing and start earlier.
Yeah. No, I agree. And when this came up last board meeting, I'm going, well, the same thing's going to happen with Ramey, and there's no way I'm going to get this thing bid out this year. And it's just going to probably take 6 months to go
The
through the
difference
process.
between, from a staff management issue, and this may sound like an excuse, and it is, but this year we had so many big projects with the interchange, the lift station, a number of other things, some plant upgrades that, it just, the flood improvements, and it just got to a point where we weren't able, didn't have time, didn't have the manpower to send out this RFP.
Is there any?
I think next year we'll be in a better place to where we can get a head start on it and get it out in time.
Is there any reason why we couldn't start this process in the first quarter, sometime in the first quarter? To start having people come out and just pick your time?
I mean, we can, I think that's a good suggestion. I mean, we can start drafting the RFP and putting all the pieces together, the requirements and all that, and earlier in the year so we can get it.
And investigating what firms are out there and go, look at them.
Yeah, that's the other issue. There's only a handful of firms out there that can do this work.
Oh, yeah.
as well, so,
Okay. So, I was toying with the idea of leaving one option year in there just in case. So that, because of that language, but let me get to, let me see, this is Veris, let me get to Ramey. Yeah.
The resolution?
Yeah, I move that we approve Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Resolution Number SMD Number 1-13 Series 2015 for contract for with Ramey Environmental Compliance, Inc. for water and wastewater treatment plant operations in substantially the form attached here too, except for removal of the option language provision.
Okay, motion by Director Sorelli, second by Director Hanson. Roll call vote.
Williams,
Yes.
Pennington,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Folsom,
Yes.
Dozell,
Yes.
Sorelli.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next is item number 14, adoption of a resolution appointing a member to the Superior Youth Leadership Council.
Thank you. Section 21240 of the Superior Municipal Code addresses memberships to the town advisory committees, including appointments. The town has solicited applications for the Youth Leadership Council through our typical media over the recent months. There's one candidate that's been interviewed by the board at tonight's work session, and is on the agenda for consideration of whether to appoint this candidate. The board has the option to appoint or not to appoint and then re-advertise for the committee. Abby Adams was interviewed at the work session tonight and under consideration for the board.
Okay, Trustee Pennington.
I move we approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R
57.
57, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, appointing a member to the Superior Youth Leadership Council, that being Abby Adams.
I second it.
Okay, motion by Trustee Pennington, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor?
Question, point of order. Why is it August of 2017 her term expires? Wouldn't it be the end of her senior year, which would be 2018?
That was a change that was made as part of the committee, or the Youth Leadership Council, because of the school year. Their appointments are different than the other committees.
Right, but we talked about that, allowing people to stay through
The senior
August
year.
of their senior year. This takes her only through August of 2017, which would be the end of her junior year. So I'm just wondering.
Two-year appointments.
Okay, it's only 2 year? I thought we had said that we could extend that to a 3-year appointment to keep, but I'm fine, I just think it's, I looked at that and said, that's not till she's a senior, that's only till a junior.
So the code has 2-year appointments.
Right. And then if you're a senior, you get 1 year.
Okay.
That's what that information was.
In the
I was thinking we had said 3 years for people
Yeah.
who were up to 3 years. Yeah, but
It
I'm
was
fine.
1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Wasn't-
attached, the third attachment under the item says
That's
the person
fine.
may serve up to 2 consecutive 3, oh, whoa.
Yeah, they should be able to serve.
Up to 2 consecutive 3-year
Yeah, I
terms
was-
on
I-
one advisory committee. Now, there was something specific for the youth advisory.
Right. We changed that for them because of this whole idea, I thought. That's the only reason I'm asking. We can let this go this way and maybe look into it, but
Yeah,
I.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, item number 15, adoption of an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 16 of the Superior Municipal Code concerning requirements for finalizing and recording land use approvals.
Staff received a request to draft an amendment to Chapter 16, Article 4 of the Superior Municipal Code concerning requirements for finalizing and recording land use approvals. The existing language and proposed change are outlined in your cover memo. The ordinance attempts to clarify Section 16.440 concerning the revocation of land use approvals and permits, and clarify the board approvals will expire if required documents and fees for recording and finalizing any approval are not received within 60 days. The amendment attempts to address concerns about the length of time between land use approval and the final documents being submitted for signatures, and if necessary, recording. 60 days is being proposed to allow for any possible litigation or other challenges that may occur with the land use approval. It also allows for technical corrections and board conditions to be addressed prior to submission for signatures. And you'll see in the cover memo, and the attached ordinance shows the additions and deletions in section 2-70 under recordings, and section 4-40 revocation of land use approvals and permits. Staff's recommending approval of the ordinance. The Planning Commission at their meeting on November 10th, 2015, approved a resolution recommending approval of the change to Chapter 16.
So I read the memo on the attorney report here about the 30-day referendum period. So can we do 30 days or not?
Well, you could, but the problem would be that you basically would have, you wouldn't know until the very end of the 30 days whether or not there's a referendum filed. And so the applicant would basically have like no time to do anything after they determine whether or not there's been a referendum filed or not. So if the 30 days expires, this gives them 30 more days to basically get the filing done and everything in.
Then let me ask this. The first 30 days, they literally can sit on it for 30 days? Is that what you're saying?
Well, basically, they don't want to file sometimes because they don't know if someone's going to challenge the land use approval.
Mhm.
So then they could just sit there for 30 days, and then they'd wait, determine whether there's any objections filed or any referendums filed on it.
Mhm.
And if it hasn't been, then they could basically make the filing. But if you give them just 30 days, then they would have no time in between the
Right.
deadline.
But they could spend that 30 days doing what they need to do.
Exactly, yeah, you're right. They
So, I'm not so sure there's any reason why not to do a 30-day instead of a 60-day.
could. Yeah, I mean,
Well, and I guess from a staff perspective.
They have to prepare it regardless, right?
And we have to act on it, though.
Yeah.
No, we've already acted on
Yeah.
it. This is only the signature.
Review and sign.
Right.
Yeah,
This is only the signature.
Cleaning up irregularities, getting the mileage.
To wait the 30 days for this referendum period, they know they have to do it. I mean, if no one comes forward, they still have to do it.
That's right.
So they're just sitting.
Well, yeah,
No,
I'm not arguing.
Right, I'm
It's
just.
fine. It's really a matter of how much time you want to give people.
Right.
And actually, it's also a question of, you know, how complicated the revisions, what kind of things are they waiting for, you know, what
Mhm.
kind of cleanups needed. 30 days would normally be enough to do most of those.
Right.
Um,
I think that there also needs to be a provision in here that states in an election year, when the board is changing over and the mayor is changing over, both or all or whatever, that the outgoing board and outgoing mayor are the ones that sign it, not the incoming. So if that means less than 30 days, then it does. Or if that means that the staff has to prepare something, you know, to come to the board way ahead of time so that there is 30 days before the election turnover. Because I think that's where we put, you know, undue pressure on somebody who wasn't fully up to speed, you know, when you're changing over in board and mayor. So that's another provision I think needs to be in here.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at probably doing that. That's definitely complicated. I mean, it could be, I got the feeling we have to draft it. I've never seen
Right.
anything like that before. I mean, it's a new, because generally the signature is basically an administrative act.
Uh-huh.
They don't have to actually
Okay, so
be part
then,
of the process, but
if that's too difficult, then it has to fall on, in some way, shape, or form, that nothing is brought before the board, the last meeting before a board changes over. So somehow, one way or another, I mean, that's about as simple as you can get, compared to what I just, you know.
if you don't think that the incoming or the new mayor can sign off on when it was approved when he wasn't the mayor, I mean, legally, that's fine for him to do that or her to do that. Because they don't have to be part of the decision-making process to sign the documents.
This was one of several things that I've signed, I mean, that were, you know, carryover. So I don't know that that's, I don't feel like that's the issue. I mean, this whole thing is kind of the result of this plan development that took 6-7 months to get to me for signature. And, you know, there was a quote in yesterday's paper about where I was attempting to relay this experience to the reporter about, you know, about the signature process. And, you know, there were questions raised, and there have been questions raised since, you know, in reading the quote, you know, does the mayor read things? Well, of course I read things. Even though I wasn't on the board, I received those packets and I followed things. So of course I read things. You know, your point about these signatures are mostly administrative. Yes, they are. I mean, because can I as mayor certify the technical correctness of everything in that document, the flow rate of a valve or the, you know, the bearing of a roof or something ridiculous like that? No, I mean, that's why, you know, to me, there's a very big difference in reading something and then certifying its accuracy. And that is where trusting staff comes in. And, you know, any CEO or elected official, anybody signing these things must be able to trust the staff that they're working with. And I do trust our staff. And we're all humans. Mistakes are going to occur. And then it depends on how we deal with those mistakes and what we do, you know, as a follow-up. I want residents to know that I do read things. I do ask questions. I'm working hard to ensure that the interests of residents are protected. And no, I'm not always the best at talking to reporters, and I'm going to work on that.
Well, I think the actual issue here is that as a resident and as a trustee, do I want a mayor and a new board, a new mayor and a new board, to sign off on material that they have not been a part of? The rest of us have. No, I do not want that.
They spend a
And if
year
you're a
working on a
mayor
budget.
and you've been at this for 4 to 8 years, and you are completely intimately involved in every detail, as we all are, when you're signing something, you do flip through. You do think of some of the things that come to your mind that were sticking points during the whole process. And if you're new, I think that you're not looking for that. And
Well,
so this is not against
yeah.
you. This is about
Okay.
process, and it's also about, you know, and I don't think it's on the staff either. I think that this just has to be a policy that we try to adopt.
I'm absolutely in favor of shortening this time frame. I mean, it is kind of crazy that it took 7 months for those Mylars to get back to me, but that was, I mean, the issue was not, you know, are you reading things, are you looking for things? No, the issue was I was told, this is what the board approved in August of 2014, administratively sign it. So that's what happened. And then, you know, as the whole thing is unfolded, we've learned that there were some administrative changes made to the grading plan. And
It's more than administrative, let's be clear.
well, there were changes made to the grading.
Major
That
changes.
That was not illustrated to me at the time that I was signing the cover Mylar.
Right.
Well, I need to go back way in time. This is not the first time this has happened. It's the first time this fact set has happened, but not, you'll recall the issue of the wording surrounding the park designations and who has responsibility and veto authority. It was very contentious. We agreed on certain language, and then when the finalized, signed-off document came to us, which I certainly have been asking for over and over and over, the wording was incorrect. And I had to go through a huge issue of watching hours and hours and hours of meetings, documenting the sequence of times before that was remedied. So what I propose, I think Deborah raises an excellent point. So certainly we have to have discussion going forward on how a board, because the trustees don't see the final document. On that particular document, we had, what are those things, conditions going into the double alphabets. We had gone through A to Z and we're on double A to double G and double X, right? And it was such an important matter, authorizing the Superior Town Center and all that TIF money and whatnot. And yet, we never saw back until months later, 6 months I think it was later, the signed document only when a request was finally honored. So we need to have a deeper discussion on this, and maybe this is one of number 28 on the agenda topics for the
Well,
upcoming.
there's already a topic on planning processes.
Okay,
that
so,
kind of
so
falls
make,
under that,
but the
right?
point is, I actually am hearing you, Deborah, and I think it is an issue because nobody buys in to the detail of a really detailed and harried deliberation than those people who were actually party to it.
Yes.
And so I'm hearing you, but I'm also hearing the mayor that, you know.
I don't think there's physically
Yeah.
any way that you can eliminate any kind of potential for someone signing something that, you know, was not handed to you correctly. I mean, that's just, there's just a physical impossibility. There's a technical impossibility of that. So I think shortening the time frame will address the issue that of most of the time. I don't think there's any way we can, you know, kind of legislate ourselves out of any future problems.
Well, but Deborah raised another point, which is, we have a board policy now, right? Not to go past, what is it, 10 or 10:30 for meetings, right? We adopted.
Or beyond 2 minutes of reports and comments.
Right, yeah.
He
was really good tonight.
Okay, so
That
why
was a
is
suggestion,
it,
it wasn't a
we
rule.
can't say that in an election year,
Yes.
no,
Yes.
none of these hugely important matters will be brought before the board without
A new board, a new mayor.
2
Right.
months,
No one would want that.
plus XX time for deliberation, you
Well,
know?
that can
So-
actually be
You
a
could have turned
process.
the
That
boards
could be
into 6 months of lame duck.
Well, no, but that could be a process rule if we wanted it, you know, and it really was, I think, a function of the times and the number of applications that were coming through 2 years ago. And it was always press, 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 get them done this month, this week. And now we have a more ordered process for hearing applications, you know, and we don't have 15 coming from the same applicant in the same week. At least we haven't so far. We've done
we will.
extensions. Well, I hope we will. That would be great. But we've also said that if we can't get it all done in one night, we're going to extend it to another meeting. And I think that will help as well. So if we tighten the time frame up, and we said, I think I originally asked for 45 days, 30 to 45 days. I don't think it requires 60 days anyway, which I didn't think about the 30-day referendum, but I don't think there's ever been a referendum filed on any applicant's approved procedure that we've gone through here in the town, as long as I can remember. So it seems to me that if we want to shorten it, we could shorten it probably down to 45 days. I don't think there's a reason we couldn't have it an odd number rather than an even number. And so 45 days would allow for them to get past the 30-day referendum, and it also give. If there was, I mean, the time frame, the clock, the 30-day clock. And then you have 15 days. But the staff can say to those applicants, okay, it's been approved and there's only 2 technical changes or 2 small minor changes. You better get this into us as soon as possible. And you just press them to do that. And then if something major comes and it's 2 weeks prior to an election, next year's election, and the current sitting board doesn't feel that they want to approve it because they'd rather move it then we have the right to vote, if the majority votes, to move and not approve, to extend it into public comment, public meetings the following time.
But-
You don't have to approve anything.
Unfortunately, that's not how that's been happening.
Well,
That's
we're
not
a
how
different
that
board.
goes.
I'd like to look forward to the future rather than the past. I think what we can clearly do is say 45 days, which is a shortened time frame, gets us past a referendum, and that should be plenty enough time for everybody. And I know Kendra had said that she'd been trying to do this and she made that comment to me, and I said, I'll bring it to the board, because sometimes staff aren't heard as loudly as some of the board members sitting on this side of the table. And definitely, when residents ask for some of these kind of things, they aren't heard as loudly either as those of us are sitting on this side of the table. And I want to make a comment about that as soon as we're done here. So I would move that we make this 45 days and work to make sure that we have enough time to do an adequate, complete, comprehensive review. And if there's many changes, like A times A triple A, like there was that time, I think we need to say, you got to send us back a new plan and let's look at it again before we approve the final one.
So if no one is interested in what I proposed for the election year stipulation, then could we at least have a stipulation where nothing comes forward, no major developments come forward before an election, 45 days before an election? So in other words, there is time for that 45 days to occur before the election occurs, so that the outgoing board members and mayor can still sign it. Can we look at that?
That could be a policy, couldn't it, rather than a
Yeah, I think-
code?
Yeah, I think my concern is the unintended consequences of a policy like that. Like, what if you have an application that's gone through the process and then, you get into a hearing in front of you, and and you want to, do you not hear it within the 45 days? So then it goes to the next board, even though you've had like 3 hearings already? Yeah, I'm just thinking about, and there's some statutory requirements for certain deadlines for when you have to hear things. I mean, I wouldn't just want to wing it out there. I think there's unintended consequences.
Well, one of the unintended consequences is the applicants
Rushing.
Take advantage
sees
of-
a negative vote
right.
coming to where he invokes that. So he has a new board who will be more favorable.
Well, he didn't know, though.
Huh?
He didn't know if he's going to get a more favorable board.
I think that's just getting
No,
way too
there are,
complicated to.
but anyway, so I suggest, are there any unintended consequences? Either anybody can see to 45 days rather than 60.
I think you just have to have people hustling a little more.
Well, first, what are the things that can happen to prevent them from being able to get it submitted besides the referendum? Litigation was mentioned in the cover memo. 60 days is not enough for litigation. If they,
Even if. Whether they can file or not is going to depend upon the kind of case that's filed, if there's any injunctions filed or anything, so.
So you got already a problem with a deadline that somebody can kill a thing by just, well, I don't, you know.
But if, there's an opportunity for the applicant to come back to the board to request additional time?
Not if you put in the code.
Well, not the way it's written. I mean, I guess the way it's written right now, there's just basically has to be filed in 60 days, or it's, to me, I guess, there's got to be some provision there if there's an issue where, I don't know, sorry. If there's some kind of an issue where there's a justifiable reason why they can't do this.
Well, I had a comment that we need something in there
Right, you know, I mean,
to allow for an extension.
Yeah,
I think that's a reasonable
Yeah,
expectation.
there's always the possibility.
Before the board, and the board can make that decision.
And then-
we could put a sentence in there that would actually allow for that, so it's clear you have the ability. I reckon you probably do anyways, but it'd be nice to have a sentence in there
Yeah.
to clarify
Right.
that.
Right.
I had another question. Maybe it's not time, maybe we're not done with your issues yet, so I shouldn't bring.
Go ahead.
Well, looking at the edit, and maybe I'm not getting it right, but the edit to 16270 requires recording fees be paid and obtain all signatures on the documents to be recorded and pay within 60 days of approval, as it's currently written. So all the signatures are obtained. In 16440, we're only revoking if they haven't submitted the document to us.
With all necessary
All the
signatures.
Okay. Well, what signatures are they submitting? They're getting the signatures before they submit? They're getting the mayor's signature before they submit it to
Well, I
us?
think with their signatures would be the ones that are required.
Right.
The ones that they need to obtain, that would be implied. They can't force the mayor.
Well, that's what I was wondering about,
Yeah,
the two things.
I mean, that, we could, with all of the applicant's necessary signatures, that might clear it up.
Yeah, okay. So I do think some kind of ability, whatever time period we come up with, we should have some ability to give an extension for some kind of circumstance beyond anybody's control.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah,
Or-
but
or
I can add,
like
it's gonna be a pretty
election.
quick turnaround. If you have 45 days, they're gonna have to come for the request, go to the board. Do you wanna give the town manager the ability to approve that administratively? He doesn't want it, so.
It used to be totally at his discretion. We screwed that
It's on
up.
the agenda and up to the board, you have to know pretty quickly. So they're gonna have to know with, a few weeks before. So they may come to you, I can see things being put on the board, on the agenda for you, and then just in case, and then.
That's fine.
But that's, if you wanna do 45 days.
What's the downside, though, to keeping it at 60 or making it longer? What's the downside
Gives
to
them
that?
more
Well, longer, yes.
Longer, less time to remember what was said.
There is a too long.
You know,
Well, but
I
the
mean,
problem
longer,
is
less
making it
ability to
shorter
remember, yeah.
with the possibility of extension, puts it all in, potentially into the whole political realm again. So I, in hearing this discussion, say keep it at 60 and don't have an extension.
So
I
litigation
think you've
could.
got to have an extension, though. I mean, there could be something with major technical changes or something that is just not gonna get done in that time frame.
Well, if there's major technical, see,
It
that's
should
the
be
whole
coming
thing, it
back to
has
the
to come
board
back.
anyway.
It's required to come back if there's anything other than basic, minor technical changes.
Yes.
It has to come back, and we're trying to put a numeric rule in place, a date rule, when we should be doing a process rule, which it already exists. It has to be complete, it has to be accurate, it has to be based on the approved plan. And that's where we failed in this last year or 2 years, is that we haven't done a good job as a town, and I'm counting board and staff in that as a town representatives, to ensure that there's a match between what was approved and what was submitted and what we actually ended up finally filing. And I can name a dozen different things over the last 20 years where this exact thing has happened. What is approved was not what got filed. And that's where we need to do a better job. And if we're trying to, again, put a way to solve this by putting a specific number rule, 60 days, when that may not even solve it.
That
because
may not.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's why we have process of this whole planning submission on our discussion at the
Well,
retreat.
I mean, I hear that, but I still think that, natural disaster, some kind of thing outside of anyone's control that causes things to get delayed to where it can't get signed.
Well, we're not unreasonable, though. I would think that if an applicant came back and said, my building was blown up by a terrorist,
but
that
if our
he'd
code
come back
doesn't
and
have
give an
that,
extension.
Yeah, what's
But-
gonna happen is you're gonna have something crazy happen, and you're gonna have to make something up on the fly. You could just add a couple of words, unless an extension of time is approved by the Board of Trustees.
An extension in time not to exceed? Or
Well-
Up to you.
Well, but then we're
Yeah.
in the
It's
same
up to,
boat.
it's
I
up
say
to the
just-
board.
I think what you said
The
is,
board may not understand what this was all about.
Well, then,
Well, but I just said, leave it in the hands of the board. I think that's good. Don't,
Yeah.
you're pigeonholing the board then.
Right.
You put it
Yeah.
at a specific time.
I think that's okay, and then I think even the 45 days isn't a bad thing, if you say, or an extension is approved by the board.
Because it's gonna depend upon what the situation is, like my office burned down, and we have to redo everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanna give them 90 days.
Right.
But yeah.
Jeff, what's typical in other jurisdictions?
I see, 60 days is pretty normal. I've seen 180 days.
Yeah.
I've seen 90. It just kind of varies.
Yeah.
Some codes don't even have anything. It's just, there's no time frame to have to record it. So it's just, it's good to get this, because it's motivating,
Right.
it motivates them to get things
Yes.
done.
It doesn't say we have to record it in 45 days. We have to get it from them within
Right.
45 days.
Yep.
And then we possibly could get it recorded at the end of the 60-day timeframe, because you have to then take it and file it and do all that kind of stuff, record it. So we're talking about just getting it from the applicant.
Yeah, it basically gives them motivation to get things done. They're
Yeah.
gonna lose their approval, and so.
Yeah.
And if you have the ability to extend it for whatever's a fair reason, it's your discretion.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
So, but what are we okay with, 45 days plus an extension or 60 days? I would like to see the extension be used less rather than more. Otherwise, it just becomes standard operating procedure.
And I think 60 days would probably be less likely to use extension, but,
Yes, I agree with that.
yeah.
I tell you, a developer would be playing with fire if he counted on getting an extension on something he worked hard to get approved.
I think if you do 60, that's plenty of time to have very few excuses. You're not gonna have them coming back to you, wasting your time all the time that way.
I think 45, we'd run into that case where they'd be rushing in here to file a request for extension. I mean, we've got cases where we've got 15 days between meetings sometimes.
Or longer.
And-
if we've
Or
got
longer.
holidays
3 weeks,
and-
You know, if we take, so
But there's no meeting involved in this. This is purely, we've already approved it, so.
But
But
if-
I
if
don't,
you get a
I don't
meeting
think
for an
50,
extension.
45 or 60 is that big of a difference. So if we got it at 60,
I
and
think
we've
I'm
had this
comfortable at
discussion, I
60.
think we understand what the.
What was your extension language?
So yeah, at the end of each one of these provisions, I would just recommend adding, unless an extension of time is approved by the Board of Trustees to both of them, and then pursuant to Trustee Sorelli's comment in the second and 16-440, I would add, if the applicant does not submit all the required documents with all, and then of the applicant's necessary signatures.
Right. Excellent.
Good. You're there.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would be okay with the 60. I'm happy with that. But if we add an extension on that, I'm going to vote it down.
Okay. Public comment? Thank you for waving to signal.
Jim Payne, Superior resident. Good evening, Board. I remember the earlier instances that Trustee Pennington was referring to, and some of the others that had a similar turn to them. And I remember at that time there was a lot of discussion about having a red line copy. So just sort of a question: if the signature at the end of the line is pretty much an administrative act where everything has been approved, why are not you, the signer, presented with a red line that shows the changes that were made as a result of that meeting? And then furthermore, why couldn't that be public? Because it's been approved in a public process. And I think that I understand the concern about some of the details that no one can be expected to catch or remember. But these things generally have to do with big issues. And there was a segment of the public that was very, very interested in that particular item of the plan that I'm sure would have caught it had it been publicized before it was signed. So it's just a suggestion. It seems to me that the basic process of a red line, and the board gets to see it, and might be helpful. So just a thought.
Jim, you raise an excellent idea, and that is actually what Rita was mentioning earlier, that it's process that we need to deal with, even more so than we need to deal with the time frame. So, and we have discussed red lines, and I am not sure if that's actually built into our process or not. I mean, we over and over, make sure that we try to get red lines whenever we get edits done on anything. So I don't know, is that in our process? Do you know?
On a final approved document?
So.
Because only the mayor sees it now.
Right.
Well, all the staff see it.
All the staff and the mayor.
I mean, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just saying there's many eyes that have seen it. But Jim brings up a point I hadn't thought about, but thank you very much for bringing up. Because if certain people, and I think he was referencing probably me, had seen that document, it never would have, if I had seen that document that we're talking about, it would have never got signed. Not because of the fact that I'm better than anybody else at signing it, or that I expect that Mayor Clint should have caught it. I don't think he should have. It was not his responsibility to know that everything was absolutely correct in that document. But because it was something that was so important to some of us, I would have seen right away, as I did when I got that grading plan, and said, where did this come from? And then they said it was in this. Well, okay, we backtracked. It was never approved by this board. And so if the people that really have an interest and a desire to see all these public documents have the opportunity to see them, kind of like last chance to review before they actually get filed, that would be a good, and I'm thinking out loud here, I'm not expecting an answer. This is more of a process discussion. But that clearly, there was too much time between what was approved and what actually finally got documented in that whole set of Mylars or pages. And that's a big issue. So the people that know never saw that final document before it was filed. And so what we need to do is close that gap, not only from a time, but also from you all. The staff has to have that institutional historical knowledge to recognize this is wrong. We cannot do this piece of paper. That's the way it's been.
And the reality, Rita, is staff has an opinion as well. Staff has a workload as well. We all have opinions, et cetera, and there is no substitute for many eyes on a contentious document. And that is what didn't happen the last time. I asked to see that document before the mayor signed it. and that never happened. And I can dog an issue, you know that. And I never got it until after it was signed and then was told it was too late despite being blatantly incorrect. So we have a process issue. Let's take it to the retreat.
Right.
And delve into it a little further. Meanwhile, I think this is a good start. There's nothing that doesn't say we can amend and add language regarding election cycles, et cetera, but I think this is a good start. It's certainly an improvement over status quo.
Well,
So-
and it's, like you said, it's a one step toward improving the process, but it's not the final way to do it. I mean, it's really more of the actions that take place within those 60 days rather than the 60-day date. That's not going to fix it entirely by itself, but it makes sense to have, every contract you sign has a time frame in which you
When
have
it's
to execute
binding,
that
yeah.
contract.
Mhm.
And that's what we're doing here, is executing a contract. And so we need to do that, and I think, let's make this resolution, and then we can have further discussion about the process.
Okay. Trustee Pennington.
I'm ready to call the motion, right?
Call
Go.
I move we approve resolution number PC-3.
It's ordinance.
Ordinance.
Number 7.
Oh, why does this one say?
That's the planning commission's resolution, I think you might be looking at.
Oh, okay.
Page 96.
Well, my other one still says PC-3. The ordinance says PC-3, and the resolution says PC-3 on my computer.
Weird. All right, I can read it.
Yeah, it does say PC-3, right?
I'd like
Okay.
to make a motion for the Town of Superior Ordinance Number O-7, Series 2015, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior amending certain sections of Chapter 16 of the Superior Municipal Code concerning requirements for finalizing and recording land use approvals. As amended.
To
With the attorney's recommended amendments?
Yes.
Correct.
Let me read them out again?
Yes.
Okay, so at the end of each sentence for each section, it's gonna read, language is gonna be added that says, unless an extension of time is approved by the Board of Trustees, and for the revision to section 16:4-40 subsection D, we're gonna add language, as I note here, if the applicant does not submit all the required documents with all, and then adding the language of the applicant's necessary signatures.
Okay.
I'll do that before the meeting's over.
So you're adding the extension?
I am.
Okay.
That's what I believe I was instructed to do.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by Trustee Pennington. All those in favor?
So just real quickly, just quick
Discussion.
question. So when Deborah asked you if you're adding the extension, we're not adding a specific extension, we're just giving the
Potential.
board the ability to add an extension,
Right,
but
so
they would
yes.
determine the length of time.
So the motion is basically with the changes I suggest, which is basically to add, which is unless an extension of time is approved by the Board of Trustees.
Perfect,
No time
yeah.
limit, no anything, it's up to the board.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, Pennington, Folsom, Hanson, Sorelli, Dozell. All those opposed? Williams. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And we're going to have a further discussion on the Remington open space. Or do you have a follow-up?
I just have a
on-
comment that
that you want to do first?
I reviewed the tape of the Planning Commission meeting, because I was so surprised as well about the fact that they didn't have meeting minutes since June. So that's what they were approving in that. But I went on to review and I was a little bit distressed that there wasn't any staff involvement throughout the discussion that was held with particularly as it relates to the presentation of potential changes of PD Plan Amendment 3. And there were comments made in the presentation that were just wrong. They were just erroneous about things that the town board had approved or had said. in the past, and no one spoke up and said, wait a second, no, that's not the way it is or the way it was approved by the board or whatever. And also, I heard that there were comments made by both sides, the presenter as well as members of the commission, that residents really weren't a party to the benefits of any of these agreements. And I was incensed at the fact that we, as representatives of the residents of the town of Superior, aren't standing up for the residents. Instead saying, well, you don't get to have any perspective. You don't get to make these decisions. The town makes these decisions. And I'm sitting here saying, who is the town if the town is not the residents? And I'm frankly getting very disappointed and disgusted with the fact that we are continuing to push our residents away whenever they come and make comments, and trying to discredit them and basically say that they don't remember it the same way, or their perspective has changed, or the town's perspective has changed, and therefore the residents' perspective or commitment is no longer valid. And that's what I heard as I watched that video, and I just wanted to throw my iPad across the room. I think that two things. One is that we are here not to make decisions for the residents, but on behalf of the residents of this town. That's in the best interest of the town, which is made up of the residents. It's not a bunch of streets, and it's not a bunch of applicants, developers that are coming here. It's the residents that we're here to represent. And also I expect staff, if they hear something in a public meeting that's incorrect, you need to stand up. Now, neither one of you two were there, and there's nobody out here of staff left over, but there were a lot of things that were, and I think I would highly recommend you review that tape.
I haven't seen it.
And understand this, because I think that we have an obligation to stand up as board and as as staff, when a resident is being questioned and it's not coming out. Well, first of all, you're questioning a resident about things that staff or the attorney should be explaining about the process and what happened or didn't happen. And I don't think that should be where a resident is grilled. Now, if it's their issue, they're saying, I don't like the way you're watering my back behind my house or something like that, you're going to ask them questions. But when their resident is being interrogated and questioned about what happened in a town board or in a planning process or what the staff did or didn't do, I think staff should stand up and answer those questions. So I would recommend that you take a look at that, and we do a better job of correcting publicly things that are incorrect or misstated, and also to remember that we are here to represent the residents of this town and not to decide for them. And this the town has to stop. The town gets to decide. The town decided. The town. Well, we are nothing but a representative body, body that represents the residents of this town. I'll make one more comment. I thought that article was very well done and pretty factual. And I don't think that about the extension and the buffer and all this kind of stuff that you were talking about, Clint. And I'm not laying blame anywhere. What I want to do is say, how are we going to improve it going forward? There was a mistake made. I don't know if it was an intentional error on either side. I don't really care at this point. We just need to fix it. And we don't need to be driven by comments from the applicant as much as we need to be driven by what's in the best interest of the town and the agreement that we have as a town and as a residents of this town, with that applicant. And I want to make that keep that in mind too. We're here to represent the town. And I was very distressed about that video when I watched that replay of that, and the fact that we're not correcting the obvious errors and misrepresentations, and we need to do that in public.
Rita, question on who were we supposed to be correcting? I mean, I didn't see the tape, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, there were.
Was it, the developer or something?
The developer's presentation.
And you're saying that was incorrect and we should have corrected?
I think so. I think when there's obvious errors, when the developer is saying things, the applicant is saying things that the town board agreed to or was required by, and was never required by the town board. And I just think that someone should stand up and say, well, wait a second, I don't think that's the way it went. Now, the problem is, the people that were there from staff are new. So they probably didn't know, but somehow we need to correct misrepresentation of the facts.
I agree, but do we also, when we have residents that come up and speak, do public comment, and they make incorrect statements, do we correct them as well? Because we've never done that in the past too.
Oh,
I've
yes.
never understood that.
We have, though. We have said that
we rarely do, because I was always told that when a resident comes to the podium, it's their time to speak, and we don't correct them. And
Well,
typically we don't. We let them talk, and even though it's not correct.
I think the actual issue here is that you don't want to mislead the planning commission
Right.
on misinformation.
Well, I
because
don't think it's
if
just
the
the planning
developer
commission, though.
is
It's everybody.
representing.
So anybody could stand up here and say something, whether it's a developer or whether it's a resident, and
No.
if it's wrong, we should correct, because
think we
because
should.
people see it on TV, and
I think
and
we
then
have
everybody thinks it's
I
the
think you
gospel.
should always err on
Always.
correctness.
I agree.
Silence is deemed assent.
Yep,
So when
acceptance,
somebody blatantly says something you disagree with, even if it's a matter of
No,
opinion.
not if we
you-
disagree. I think if it's wrong, we need to
Well,
correct
there,
it.
sometimes wrong is opinion, or is perceived as opinion, but if you strongly take issue with what is said, I think you should put forth that, just so silence is not deemed, my silence
Right.
is not deemed
Right.
agreement, I'd like to say X. That way, there is on that permanent tape, because now the tape is the minutes, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it never hurts to put
Right.
that forth. And if I can tell my own disappointment with this whole buffer issue, we had a string of residents telling us all summer we were doing it wrong. And they were maligned, and they were not listened to. And then, oh, by the way, they were in fact totally correct. And I'm embarrassed about that. This is what you say. We are elected by the residents. We need to listen to the residents whom we serve. So that is my final comment on that whole newspaper article. But let's listen to what our residents have to say and treat them and their opinions with respect.
And I think that if it's factually incorrect, and I might take issue with if you have an opinion that's strongly differing, but if it's factually
I agree,
incorrect,
yeah.
we have an obligation to make that correction in public at that time, because, things just can snowball out of whack. And, yes.
But decisions such as the planning commission, decisions get made on false information.
That's what
I think
happened there,
that's
because.
the
right,
issue here, that you want to make sure.
It's not like the earth's going to stop revolving because of it, but it was just like, I still think if it's a factually incorrect, we have an obligation to make that correction.
Okay, let's move on to our Remington open space trail discussion,
That was what we put at the end of the agenda.
and that's where we are
Okay.
right now.
You all laughing.
I-
We lost track.
Go forth as the liaison to OSAC. And I'd like to hear Chris's opinion, particularly as the liaison to ProStac, to see where he stands.
Can I get some
Yeah.
clarification on what the trail and what where it goes and what we're talking about? Because there's a connection out to Single Tree. Is that what we're talking about?
There's two trails
There's two.
that are proposed for
Do
that
we
area.
have anything we can show a picture of?
that would be
Yeah, that's
great.
right. And there's a small trail that connects Remington to original town. That, there's a lot of history there that I can share with you if you'd like, but
Mhm.
that's, to me, my
Trying to see
confusion
which
is
one.
which are we, or are we talking about both?
So there's this trail here, right, that I think ProStack and OSAC and some residents are concerned about. And then there's this connection that goes north, connects to this cul-de-sac. But I think it's this trail here that the committees are asking to review again, and some of the residents have stated that they would not like to see built as part of the development.
And what is the request in front of us right now that we're considering?
The one that goes across.
Specifically
No, I
from
mean,
the
what did
committees,
ProStack ask?
And please correct me if I have this wrong, but I think they're asking the board's permission to review this at a future meeting and have a recommendation to the board about the trail.
And that's what I'd like to comment on, is that request by ProStack and OSAC to have time to review. One, hopefully, Trish made the request on OSAC's behalf. It is an open space trail. So I would ask that OSAC also have the opportunity to review it. And I am actually going to put forth a broader issue. Both ProStack and OSAC spend a good quarter or even half a year reviewing the 5-year trail plan. And for some reason, this trail never was part of their deliberations on the 5-year trail plan, which is the master plan according to this very educated group of 9 OSAC members and 9 ProStack members on interconnectivity in this whole massive thing.
Going back how far?
This trail's never been on.
That's not true.
Well, that's what I've
So
heard from the
that's
committees.
the issue at hand here, and I agree with ProStack that they want to review it because there's the possibility that they misunderstood. ProStack at that time misunderstood that trail for another trail that already existed. But give credit to town staff that there's extensive documentation that it was discussed. But I'm not saying that we leave it
Well,
at that. I say
okay,
that we let them discuss it.
I'll leave that to be litigated elsewhere. But in the time I have been served as OSAC liaison, which somebody can go back and document, it's a considerable, it's 2 or 3 or 4 cycles of 5-year trail planning.
Mm-hmm.
This has never been on there. And I would contend that every trail, I heard that it wasn't on there because it's going to be privately funded. Well, everything needs to be on the master plan so they can make wise decisions about how to integrate everything privately funded or publicly funded in the system. So I actually think it's very reasonable, and we can put a time frame on it so that it doesn't extend all of 2016 or whatnot, that in the first quarter the recommendation comes back. But I'd like to see both committees. They're very good these days at actually sitting down together and deliberating things together from the different perspectives of open space and interior trails, so they could choose to do that if they wish. But I do think we need to get their opinion. Secondly, having sat through only the FDP process on this trail, because I was elected after the preliminary development plan had already been approved, if this trail alignment, the big, long east-west alignment, was on something I approved, I have no recollection of it at all. I recollect the narrow access point, and Joe, I would like your historical perspective on that.
I'm not sure I'm seeing
But
the same thing. The one I'm thinking of might be at the very top.
Yeah, I have no recollection myself of this east-west alignment. So when I was asked about it, I had no recollection, and I don't know whether or not it was in the FDP where it was approved or not. So,
Yes.
you know, I think it is worthwhile having the committees weigh in on, because that's their job. And also, let's say they make a case that says we're at issue with this. I do think we've got a great relationship with Remington to suggest to Remington a modification in their plan regarding this. I don't think it has to be contentious with Remington. It can actually be, let's sit down now that more of this development's built out, and let's talk about this trail. Does it make sense from your perspective? Does it make sense from the town perspective? Again, an amicable conversation. It doesn't have to be contentious.
I don't think you'd have any objection from Remington to not put that trail in.
I don't know.
Because, I mean,
You know, perhaps
it's out of their pocket to do it.
Perhaps you would, but I'd like to see what these two committees have to say about it.
Matt, is there time frames that we're up against or anything of that nature?
Majority of
Any
the
other
landscaping
consideration?
improvements with us getting into the winter time aren't gonna happen until the, spring, summertime, so there's time.
Okay. Okay, I think would you like to make a comment?
Jim Payne, Superior resident. Just to provide a little historical perspective, because I was chair of ProStac at the time and also a member of OSAC. And I'm pretty sure I had very good notes, and I've shared this with some members of the board and staff, and some on ProStac. This came up very suddenly. If you remember, it had been, 2009, then it came back, and we actually put in our minutes, our meeting notes, that it was, we were asked to give just a very broad up or down on this project with no notice. And I'm not complaining, I'm not being critical, I'm just saying that's the way it came out. And ProStax, among a couple of other things having to do with the connectivity to Founders Park, what is now Founders Park, ProStax's major concern all the way along was not to disturb, and OSAC's too for that matter, if I can historically speak for them, was not to disturb or minimize the impact on that open space. So we had discussions from 2009 and that very short meeting in 2012 that, for example, said there should not be access from the individual lots along the southern part of the development so that social trails just didn't develop helter-skelter across the open space. And we also made the recommendation, and this was actually a specific recommendation to the board that's documented, that we felt it was important that there be a single trail from the southwest corner of the development, which you see there, connecting to the county trail, And what happened, and it's very clear from the extemporaneous notes and the other things that we were saying at the time, that in that fateful night in 2012, when we had to kind of give a thumbs up or thumbs down, we assumed that that was a connection to the county trail. I can tell you that's what happened. And I'd suggested that use the, is there one?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
I had suggested to the staff for this, when this came back to the board now, that it would be helpful to actually show the county trail, which is down here.
Right.
Both of them should be on there, both of them should be shown together to fully understand. And I don't think this trail makes sense, but I'm not here to advocate. I'll leave that to the committees. But historically, I know it happened, but I can tell you, we never, ever vetted that trail. And everything we said and did and recommended shows that we were concerned and didn't want to break up that parcel and didn't see any need to do it.
So are you telling us that you thought that east-west
We
black
looked
line
at this.
was
We
the
said,
county trail?
this is what we've been recommending, and there it was.
Yep.
And it was, we didn't have this in advance. It was put down on the table and essentially said up or down, thumbs up or thumb down for the project. We didn't get into.
So Jim, you thought the east-west there in black was the county trail?
Right.
And that's.
But I can tell you this for sure. It was never discussed as a separate new additional trail in either committee. And as I pointed out, and as you just said, it never made its way onto any of the 5-year trail plan discussions for any year since then. And it definitely should have and would have. had everybody clearly understood.
And that's why I recall on this whole discussion that we were even going to leave the actual connection from the development to the single tree trail
Right.
as a social trail until we figured out where was the
Exactly.
best
And there was some
location.
exchanges with the county about that too, and I think there's some documentation of that. And I'll only make this one suggestion, because I don't want to get into the advocacy now, but if, now that I understand and now that it's clear what this is and what this plan proposed, if there is some desire to have more access from the development, you might actually want to think about a trail that goes along there, but connects over here and over here, but somehow keep people from crossing through or splitting it east and west. And I do think to fully understand this, you need to look at the whole picture
Yes.
with the county trail on the
So draw
on the
the
screen
county
also.
trail on there.
Well, it kind of winds. I'm a little,
It goes diagonally down there.
yeah, it kind of goes, but it's essentially parallel, but it does kind of wind or something, so. Anyway, I just wanted, and I did have very good notes on this, and I've shared them with some of you, and I'm very confident of the historical accuracy of what I'm telling you, so.
Okay, thanks for the
Thanks.
comments.
If that helps.
So the request is to send this back to the committees. It sounds like we've got pretty broad support for that, yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Board? Okay.
Absolutely.
Did you want to say
Okay.
something, Rick?
I don't know if anybody remembers that this property down here, where this trail is, Smith Environmental did an environmental study on that property, and they said that was the most valuable property to keep as open space. And if you read that report, there's wetlands down in there and that. That report will tell you about how valuable that is not to be disturbed.
Can you show me single tree on this map, or in this single tree? Is that on there at all?
Yeah, it comes down over here like this.
Okay, now I know where we're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to say anything? Okay. Okay, so board is giving a thumbs up
Absolutely.
to that? Okay.
You know, there's something else I'd like to interject and see if there's any stomach for it, and maybe it's ProStack to make that decision. I really could go either way on that trail. I don't think it needs to be there necessarily, but Patrick took me out there at the end of last week to walk around and see that. He also took me over to the Hake property, and that is a great piece of property to go out there. It's part of the history of our town. Is there an opportunity to maybe make some access, easier access, and make that more part of the town history? Like, we have the second graders come in and learn about the town history and go to the different original plots in town, that they also go to that and learn about
Can
the
you
Hake.
point that out on?
I'm wondering why Mr. Hake is the only thing he has named after him is a ditch.
That's right. It's in this area here. But you can see where he took stones and started building up a wall. You can see where his root cellar is. You can see where there's a corral that's still there. It's just a really great piece of
I'd love
property
to
and
go
part of
on
our
a
history.
tour.
It's really neat.
We need a field
And I
trip.
think that that's something that, you know, our young kids need to be more aware of.
It's a good suggestion.
But that doesn't mean we have to make this connection go across, but can we make it accessible here, maybe with
It
the
is
trail?
accessible from that driveway going down in there.
It's a little muddy right now, but,
That happens.
but opportunity, you know, year-round, if there was an easier access for kids or adults.
Does Fifth Avenue come up to that property? It's further over this way yet?
I don't know.
Okay, anything further?
Or do we need a vote, or does head nod to send it back to committee?
Head nod's fine.
Okay,
Or you can vote if you want, it's up to you.
I'm in favor.
I think we've.
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah,
we've
in
nodded.
favor. Well, I think we all
Heads
are
have
in
been
favor.
nodded.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything further before the gavel bangs? Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Good to see y'all again. Thanks for having me.
Good seeing you, Jeff.
Thanks for coming.